One day, a letter arrives for Ed. It's from his family, and it carries the worst possible news. He's been disowned, removed from the family register, stripped of his title, his wealth, and his dormitory room in a single document. The academy students are already gossiping. They steer clear of him as always, citing his bad reputation, and most of them think he's getting exactly what he deserves for trying to cheat during the entrance exam. Ed feels the weight of the injustice. The people judging him don't know the real story. The truth is something nobody at this academy could possibly believe. Ed has been transported into his favorite video game, The Failed Swordsman of Sylvania. In the game, he doesn't play a hero or a prodigy. He plays a minor villain who appears at the very start of the story and vanishes just as quickly. This character is weak, powerless, and canonically destined to end up as a beggar. Ed checks his stats and feels the full weight of that destiny. Stamina, strength, and magic all embarrassingly low. Even a farmer NPC outperforms him. This is why his character barely registers in the original story. But Ed has no intention of accepting that ending. The academy is his only real opportunity to build something. It's a prestigious institution, and anyone who graduates walks out with a future. He knows this opening segment is brutal, but his first semester tuition is already paid, and he's going to use every bit of game knowledge he has to survive. His goal is simple: graduate, live peacefully, change his fate. His weak stats make him doubt himself, but he decides to focus on surviving the next 10 days until the new semester begins. To avoid the stares and whispers on campus, he leaves the academy grounds entirely and disappears into the forest. On day 1, he tries cutting logs and using magic to move them. His weak magic drains him almost immediately and leaves him hungry. He remembers a story from his grandfather about making stew from tree bark. He tries it. It tastes exactly as bad as it sounds and makes him feel sick. He quickly concludes that wood is better for building than eating. He gets to work. He cuts logs, builds a frame, puts everything together, and after hours of effort, a shelter stands before him. His stats improve slightly. He earns a small achievement. For the first time, he feels something like hope. He also discovers something unexpected. While he's not particularly skilled with magic, he's surprisingly good with his hands. Using those crafting instincts, he builds a harpoon, which unlocks another achievement. He catches fish, cooks them, and sits down to his first real meal in 2 days. He can survive this. Then he hears something behind him. He turns. Princess Phinia is standing at the edge of the trees. She is the third princess of the Cole Empire and the very person who exposed his cheating during the entrance exam. Because of her, he lost everything. And now she looks furious to find him still on academy grounds, completely unapologetic, cooking fish by a fire. Phinia doesn't understand why he hasn't been expelled yet. She thinks he's shameless and warns him to leave. Ed is immediately nervous because Phinia possesses a rare power. She can see through lies. If she reports him, expulsion is certain, and that's the end of everything. While she's scolding him, he notices his fish is burning. Adding frustration to anxiety, he tries his best to divert her attention and then, almost surprising himself, simply bows and thanks her. She stops. She can't detect any deception from him. She knows the Rothstaylor family by reputation. Infamous for genocidal experiments on humans, considered by many to be trash, who should be destroyed or executed. But Ed has already been disowned. That separation is actually his advantage here. He notices she's alone in the forest without an escort or her academy uniform. He recalls from the game's timeline that this is likely during the class placement test, the period where students search for magical beads. He knows Phinia wants to be placed in Class A, the academy's highest tier, and he knows she'll struggle without help. He offers to assist her. She's immediately suspicious. She thinks it's a trick. Ed stays calm and tells her directly, if he lies, she can have him expelled on the spot. This is his last chance, and he knows the only way through is honesty. He tells her exactly where the magical bead is hidden, beneath Marilda's guardian tree, in the middle of the island. She follows his directions. She finds the bead exactly where he said it would be. Phinia stands there with the bead in her hand, confused. The Ed she knew 3 days ago was a cheater and a liar. This version of him makes no sense. The next day, the class placement tests conclude and students gather for evaluations. Professor Glast arrives and asks everyone to present what they've collected. Several students come forward with various objects, including what they think are the right items, but end up placed in Class F for failing to understand the test requirements. The professor explains that the correct beads lack magical power, which makes them nearly impossible to identify without sharp judgment. Two of the correct beads were found by the main protagonists, Jix and Lortel. Then Professor Glast raises his hand and points to the final student, the one who retrieved the third bead from the guardian tree. He declares her the top of the class. Everyone is stunned. Meanwhile, sitting by the river, Ed fashions a crude fishing rod and earns another achievement. He thinks about Phinia. He knows from the game that she developed her sharp judgment because of the constant politics and scheming within the royal palace. It became her method of self-protection, a skill forged through years of navigating treacherous imperial waters. That's why she's so confident in her ability to read people. She's seen the harsh truths of her world with unnerving clarity. He also thinks about the choice he just made. He knows that if he told Phinia where the bead was, it would ruin the original story. If the story changes too much, all the gained knowledge he has becomes worthless, and he loses his only advantage. But the information he gave her, though it seemed like a gift, was actually a carefully calculated trap. Here's why. Phinia wants to keep her royal identity secret. She's embarrassed by the special treatment her status brings and wants to earn everything on her own terms. Finding the bead through someone else's directions would compromise her values entirely. She walks the righteous path. That's how she eventually earns the title Princess of Love in the original story. She wouldn't accept the bead, and Ed knew that. Since he can't lie to Phinia, he uses something subtler than deception. He plays on her principles, and as he predicted, she refuses to take it. Another student named Lucy finds the bead instead. Phinia is furious and frustrated. She knows Ed told her the truth, which means she can't punish him for it, but his actions cost her the chance to succeed on her own. Ed has kept the story on track without telling a single lie. He feels genuinely relieved. He heads back to the academy for the opening ceremony of the new semester, eats well, and relaxes for the first time in days. Students notice the change in him immediately. The Ed they knew as a bully and a troublemaker seems like an entirely different person now. His focus is clear: graduate. That's the only goal. In the crowd, one girl watches him closely. She's surprised by how much he seems to have changed. It's almost as if he's a completely different person. On his first official day back, the faculty praises those who improved during the break. Then Ed is unexpectedly called to meet the principal, and his stomach immediately drops. He assumes he's about to be expelled. He isn't. The principal just smiles and speaks calmly. Ed suspects Phinia might have reported him, but nothing in the principal's demeanor suggests he knows anything. The meeting ends without incident. Ed walks out more cautious than before. He resolves to stay as close to the original story as possible from this point forward. Living in the forest is sharpening him in ways the academy never could. His survival skills improve steadily. He gets better at crafting quality arrows and starts thinking about how to enchant them with magic. One evening, after hunting for food, he's heading back to his tent when he spots a girl sitting under the Marilda tree. It's Janica Failover. She's the genius spirit sorcerer of the second year, Ed's own year, and she's seen him before. She approaches with unmistakable excitement. She introduces herself and tells him the magical Marilda tree has been sharing stories about him. The tree has been watching Ed in the forest and isn't bothered by his presence at all. This actually reassures him. He remarks casually that even a fierce wild wolf can have a tender heart. Janica laughs at this. She extends her hand and asks if he wants to touch the spirit she's formed a contract with. Ed declines politely. He can't see the spirit anyway, says he only came to the area to gather food, and excuses himself. The real reason he keeps his distance is something much more calculated. He knows exactly who Janica Failover is. She's a key character, and building a connection with her risks altering the storyline, which would cost him every informational advantage he has. As Ed walks away, Janica calls her spirit companion, a wild wolf named Milda, the guardian of the forest. She leans against Milda and thinks about Ed. The tree told her he was fascinating, and she's starting to see why. He only gives short, clipped answers no matter how friendly she is. She thinks it probably won't be their last meeting. She's right. The next morning, Ed works hard not to be late for the academy. His shelter is far from campus, and the commute is a daily challenge, but his stats keep improving, and the effort is paying off. He does everything himself, his chores, his laundry, carefully managing his food and supplies. His goal is to earn a scholarship. Janica watches him from a distance, curious about his routine. When Ed finally notices, he spins around and demands to know why she keeps following him. He wants her to understand exactly who she's dealing with. Ed Rothstaylor, the most infamous and dangerous student at the academy. She tells him she doesn't judge people based on what others say. She doesn't truly know him. Ed remains wary. He knows Janica might seem naive and innocent on the surface, but in the game, she's the final boss of Act 1. Getting too close to her is not an option, which makes it all the more uncomfortable when, overwhelmed by his circumstances, Ed decides to ask her for a favor. She gets excited, thinking it's something meaningful. Then he asks for money. Her mood crashes instantly. Money is Janica's greatest weakness. She comes from a poor background and works incredibly hard to maintain her scholarship. Without it, she can't continue her education. She apologizes quietly and walks away, leaving Ed feeling conflicted. 3 days later, while hunting, he reflects on that conversation. He regrets asking her, but he knows better than to entangle himself with key characters. He needs to protect the original storyline. When he returns to his tent and lifts the curtain, he finds someone sleeping inside. Lucy Marcel, the rare genius, the most powerful mage at the academy. She wakes up immediately and complains about how loud he is. When Ed demands an explanation, Lucy points calmly behind him and tells him that a spirit wants to speak with him, one that urges him to save Janica someday, at any cost. Ed still can't see anything. He's frustrated. Not only has he barely managed to keep Janica at arm's length, but now he has to deal with Lucy as well. Lucy is small, walks on air, and behaves like a stray cat, showing up wherever she finds it comfortable to nap. She's now using his campsite and his resources to skip classes and rest. He blames himself for this entirely. While he's setting snare traps for hunting, Lucy casually takes the bait, a chunk of beef, and eats it without a second thought. He tries to say something. She ignores him completely. He knows that if she's already been here multiple times, she'll keep coming back. And from his experience as a veteran player, there is no known strategy to defeat Lucy in combat. He decides to play his last card. He tells Lucy that he recently saw maids from Office Hall searching for her. The moment she hears this, she freezes completely. Her composure shatters for the first time. She makes a hasty excuse about remembering something urgent and vanishes into the air before he can blink. Ed exhales in relief and thanks every game guide he ever read. While Lucy is a formidable mage with no known combat weaknesses, she always, without fail, flees at the mention of dormitory maids. Apparently, the maids who look after Lucy have a habit of chasing her everywhere. With her gone, Ed feels a quiet sense of triumph. Her 2-day stay probably won't impact the storyline significantly. He's managed to protect the original plot again, though he quietly notes how satisfied he's starting to feel when these small victories land. The first major quest finally appears, Joint Combat Training. It's a mock one-on-one combat exercise using fake weapons. It's also the moment when all the main characters of the game meet for the first time. Among them stands Taylor, the failing swordsman of Sylvania Academy, the main protagonist of the entire game. Ed has little interest in the matches at first. He already knows the results. The winners will always be the first-year main characters, Taylor included, but then one thing catches his attention. Janica is here. She appears with the same relentless enthusiasm as always. Despite Ed's repeated attempts to distance himself, she sticks to him like glue. Watching her, Ed wonders if she belongs to some kind of dog family, the same way Lucy clearly belongs to the cat family, given how she wanders and clings simultaneously. Janica tries to be helpful by showing Ed the match list. He ignores it at first, but when she casually mentions his name appears on it, he becomes alarmed. In the game's original storyline, Ed Rothstaylor is expelled long before this quest happens. He grabs the list and scans it for his opponent. Before he can process it fully, the most anticipated fight of the event begins, the duel between Taylor and Lucy Marcel. Ed sets the list aside and watches, feeling a deep connection to Taylor despite everything. He spent countless hours completing this game alongside this character. Even now, occupying a side character's body, he wants to cheer for him. He vividly recalls this iconic moment, Taylor gripping his sword for the first time, skillfully countering Lucy's spells, catching her off guard. Lucy then escalates to intermediate lightning magic, which disqualifies her, and Taylor becomes the first person to ever defeat her. Nostalgia sweeps over Ed as the referee rings the bell and the match begins. Taylor charges in with his signature determination, aiming straight for Lucy. With a single lightning strike, she sends him into the wall. Ed watches, knowing Taylor refuses to give up no matter what, even against this kind of overwhelming force. Taylor grabs his sword, charges again, catches Lucy off guard, mirroring the exact sequence from the game. Then something unexpected happens. Instead of Lucy using intermediate lightning magic as she does in the original story, she casts a blocking spell, halting Taylor mid-charge. She follows with wind magic, sends him flying even further, and exhausts him completely. The announcer declares Lucy the winner. Ed is stunned. Taylor was supposed to win this fight, and now he hasn't. This small change might seem minor, but Ed knows what it means. The ripple effects could unravel everything. He watches Taylor walk away from the match, crushed, defeated, and feels a rising sense of panic. He quickly pieces it together. The magic Lucy just used isn't normal. It's continuous magic, the kind that can only be obtained through a contract with a high-class spirit. In the original story, Lucy and the forest guardian spirit Milda have no connection. But Lucy's unexpected visits to Ed's campsite must have led her to accidentally form that contract. She's now far stronger than she was ever supposed to be. Ed blames himself. This change is his fault. The announcer calls the next match. Ed Rothstaylor versus Princess Phinia. She's ready. She's been holding a grudge and is eager to settle it in this duel, but Ed doesn't even acknowledge her. He pushes past her and runs after Taylor, who is already leaving the hall, shattered by his loss. Taylor's defeat is entirely Ed's doing. In the original story, Ed's character would have been gone before this quest ever began, but he's still here and his presence has changed everything. Taylor losing risks destroying the entire storyline. Ed catches up to him and urges him not to give up. Taylor's defeat is only one setback. What matters is that he stays at the academy. Taylor's spirit as the protagonist is essential for everything that comes after. Without him, the whole story collapses. Ed does his best to motivate him, reminding him of his strength and potential, and knowing privately that he's also fighting for his own survival. If Taylor gives up, Ed's chances of making it through this world fall apart too. For Princess Phinia, her judgment ability was first recognized by Emperor Kloll. Most believe it to be a divine gift. It isn't. She built it herself, forged through years of navigating the endless politics and conspiracies of the imperial palace. It became her method of self-protection. She's seen the harshest truths of the imperial world clearly, and that lens of experience sharpened her perception into something almost supernatural. Whenever she wants to judge someone, she looks straight into them. There's no hiding from her. Before the match begins, Ed tells her casually to go easy on him. She says the same back. The audience is already whispering harsh comments about him. In the original story, he was notorious for bullying Taylor and then hypocritically cheering for him afterward. They can't reconcile the contradiction. Ed knows they're right. The character he's inhabiting used his position to humiliate others, and when that failed, he cheated on exams and got expelled. He makes no effort to defend the reputation. The match starts. Phinia forms a water ball and throws it at him to test him. She expects him to dodge with fire or wind magic. Ed doesn't dodge. He doesn't defend. He simply stands there and takes the hit. Phinia is shocked. Ed then calmly declares that he lost, handing her the victory without even trying. The audience erupts, cheering for Phinia, booing Ed, shouting that he's even worse than Taylor. Ed calmly approaches the princess, thanks her for the match, and quietly leaves the arena. This only deepens Phinia's curiosity. She begins questioning everything. Why he acted this way, whether he never had any interest in the duel at all. Ed's forfeit was entirely intentional. He doesn't want to interfere with Phinia's place in the story. He knows how important she is to what comes next. He quickly leaves the arena and goes looking for Taylor, knowing that Taylor, not the princess, is the true protagonist of this tale, and he can't let him give up. As Ed searches, Phinia appears suddenly behind him, panting. She's alone again, no escort. She shouts at him, demanding to know what his intentions really are. She accuses him of never planning to win the match, of wanting nothing except to get off the stage as fast as possible. Her frustration boils over. She admits she's exhausted by everyone at this academy, her classmates, the professors, even the servants. Ed's behavior has pushed her past her limit, and she doesn't understand him at all. She demands to know who he actually is. Ed steps closer, places his hands on her shoulders, and tells her to breathe. He guides her through a simple breathing exercise, calm, unhurried. His steadiness cuts through her spiral. She focuses. The frustration eases, just slightly. After a moment, she realizes how she was acting and apologizes. Ed notices she's calmed down a little and looks for an opening to leave so he can continue searching for Taylor. But Phinia starts opening up. She talks about her struggles, the weight of palace politics, the toll it takes day after day. Even after sharing all of it, she still wants answers. She asks him why he picks on Taylor, whether it's because Taylor has a troubled background and Ed wants a reason to resent his own family's rejection of him. Ed knows there's truth in what she's saying, but he pretends not to understand. He avoids giving her a clear answer, knowing this isn't the right moment and that too much honesty could derail the story further. She grows annoyed again. She presses him on why he once tried to get Taylor expelled, but now seems to be supporting him. Ed gives vague, unrelated answers that only frustrate her more. Without proof to confront him directly, she eventually lets him go, though she remains deeply suspicious. At the door, Ed stops. He turns back and tells her something she doesn't expect. While she needs to stay sharp about the politics of this place, she also needs to rest. The academy isn't like the palace. She doesn't need to be on guard every single moment here. Phineas is caught off guard. She's surprised he understands her situation that clearly. Nobody has ever seen through her like that before. Ed, aware that his words may have already made a deeper impression than intended, leaves and keeps searching for Taylor. He finds him alone, holding his broken sword, looking lost. He moves toward him, and someone steps in front of him. Isla, the main heroine of the game. She tells Ed firmly, "Don't come any closer. Don't bother Taylor anymore." She stands between them and accuses Ed of causing enough harm already. Then something surprising happens. Taylor, despite looking completely defeated, stands up. He confronts Ed directly, asking why he's still at the academy. Ed is surprised by the strength it takes to do that after such a crushing loss. He's played this game alongside Taylor countless times. He knows that Taylor's defining quality is that he never gives up, no matter the opponent or the odds. He also sees the influence of Isla, Taylor's childhood friend and most consistent supporter, who is always there to lift him back up. As Taylor demands answers, Ed simply praises his swordsmanship. He acknowledges Taylor's skill during the duel, a genuine compliment, coming from someone who spent hundreds of hours fighting alongside this character through the entire game. Ed tells him he just came to see him. No schemes, no hidden motives. He turns to leave. Taylor might still doubt him, but Ed feels relieved, not because the storyline is perfectly intact. It isn't, but because Taylor, the hero he knows so well, is still standing. Taylor and Isla glare after him, irritated by how calm he is. Then a loud explosion shakes the hall. Ed immediately recognizes what this is. It's the duel between the Golden Daughter Lortel and Janica Failover, a key event that in the original story was meant to be watched by Taylor and the other main characters from inside. With everything that's changed, Taylor and Isla are now outside. Ed decides it's acceptable. The match is still happening, and they may be watching from the exterior. What matters is that it occurs. Inside, the duel becomes fierce. Lortel uses ice magic to stop the fire spirit Janica summoned. The fire spirit's strength overwhelms the ice, melts it, and strikes Lortel directly. Janica wins. The crowd cheers wildly for a second-year student defeating a first-year powerhouse. But Janica notices Lortel being carried away by medics and immediately feels guilty. She realizes she accidentally used an intermediate-level spell, which violates the rules. Nobody seems to have noticed the mistake, but she's traumatized by what she's done to her opponent. Unlike the original game story, Lucy has defeated Taylor, and the entire quest concludes with Janica as the only senior student to win, defending the reputation of the older enrollment. Ed watches and notes that things are about to become significantly more complicated for Janica, but he considers this a relief because at least it means she probably won't be visiting his camp as often. He decides more firmly than ever to avoid further involvement with the main characters. Getting tangled up with them only brings headaches. 2 weeks passed after the joint combat training. Ed spends them focused entirely on improving himself. His stats climb significantly. His physique, stamina, and skills all grow stronger. He can study and survive now without relying on any of the key characters. He's starting to feel like he might actually be able to do this. While bathing in the river one morning, he spots Janica sneaking up on him. He yells at her for invading his privacy. Later, they sit together near his campfire. Janica tells him she loves his camp. She calls it a perfect secret base for adventures, and says she needs his honest opinion on something. She asks why she came to him instead of her other friends. She explains that after the duel with Lortel, she accidentally used an intermediate-level spell that wasn't permitted and injured her opponent. She feels guilty and can't shake the thought that she overreacted. Her friends would just reassure her. She wants someone who will actually tell her the truth about whether she should apologize to Lortel. Ed tells her simply, Do whatever feels right. If she believes apologizing is the correct thing to do, then apologize. Being bubbly and cherished by everyone doesn't erase mistakes, and other people's encouragement won't undo what happened. What matters is what she decides. Janica feels genuinely happy that he doesn't take sides blindly. She notices how much Ed has changed compared to last year, and she's a keen observer beneath all the cheerfulness. She remembers the time he asked her for money and didn't show the desperation most people would in that situation. His behavior subtly signaled her to keep her distance from him. She finds him fascinating and tells him she likes him a lot, that she wishes more people were like him, because his presence has become a strange but comforting source of reassurance for her. The next day at the academy, Ed finds himself in trouble. Lortel has been following him everywhere, calling out to him, and he's doing everything in his power to ignore her. He knows exactly why this is happening. The Failed Swordsman of Sylvania is considered a masterpiece, and reaching its true ending is something only a fraction of players ever accomplish. Most encounter bad endings early, wrong decisions, failure to save important characters, which lead to the hero being killed or broken entirely. Lortel in the early stages of the game is a hidden hero assigned to a specific role. She appears to be a villain at first. Her true nature and importance only become clear much later in the story. To prevent losing control of the narrative and risking a bad outcome, Ed resolves not to play into her hands. He will stay cautious about every decision. Lortel follows him persistently, eventually stepping in front of him with an innocent angelic smile. She politely requests 2 hours of his time. Ed, clearly annoyed, asks how long she plans to trail behind him. She responds playfully that she didn't expect him to ignore her for this long, acting as though his resistance didn't bother her at all. Lortel Ketchum is no ordinary student. She's the only daughter of a magnet elite and is deeply entangled in the political rivalry with Princess Fina for control over the academy. Ed has zero interest in getting pulled into her scheming. He resumes walking, hoping to shake her off. She continues with sweet, flattering words, trying to win his attention, even offering to help with anything he needs. Ed tells her, unmoved, not to make promises she doesn't truly mean. She refuses to give up. She steps in front of him again, this time claiming to have great respect for him despite all the rumors, and produces 3 gold coins, worth an entire month's earnings for most students, as a down payment to secure his attention. Then she makes her offer. She wants Ed to befriend Janica. She slips the coins into his pocket with a sly smile, saying that having more people on her side is always beneficial. Ed studies her. He asks, with a hint of curiosity, whether the famed Golden Daughter also buys her connections. He understands what she's doing. As a first-year student, she's already strategizing for control of the academy, gathering allies to consolidate influence. He finds it genuinely remarkable. He extends his hand for a handshake. During it, he delivers a quiet lesson. He tells her that for people who have always been wealthy, even a moment of poverty can break them. But for those who have lived in desperate situations, even a small amount of money can make them abandon their pride, betray their families, or sell themselves. Taking advantage of desperate people is easy and common. He is neither desperate nor interested in accepting money for cunning arrangements. He pulls back his hand, places the coins into her palm, and walks away. Lortel stands stunned, and then amused by his cleverness. Ed feels frustrated knowing the money would have helped him, but accepting it would risk altering the storyline. Lortel Ketchum, for her part, isn't insulted. She understands the balance of benefits and risks better than most. In the game, she's the ideal business strategist, always finding ways to turn situations to her advantage. And what she wants, right now, is to make Janica fail over one of her political allies. That night, Janica visits Lortel's quarters. Lortel greets her with a playful smile, teasing that she hadn't expected a visit. It's their first meeting since their intense duel. Janica apologizes for using the intermediate spell during the joint exercise and for breaking the rules. She notices Lortel's injuries are still visible and expresses concern. Lortel brushes it off lightly, assuring her the wounds will heal soon. Then, with a playful grin, Janica casually asks whether Lortel's conversation with Ed went well, dropping the question like a small bomb. Lortel is caught off guard. She tries to deflect, claiming she doesn't know what Janica's referring to. Janica grins knowingly and reveals that her spirit companions enjoy eavesdropping on conversations. This stuns Lortel completely. Seizing the moment, Janica asserts her seniority, leans in close, and calls out Lortel's strategy of using gold coins to buy allies, reminding her that genuine bonds can't be purchased. To make Lortel feel a little jealous, she then talks about Ed's approach, describing it as far more genuine and heartfelt than Lortel's method. Janica laughs, realizing she may have bragged a bit too much for a senior student. Before leaving, she apologizes again for hurting Lortel during the training, and says that one day she'll be strong enough to summon a high-ranked spirit, but she still has a long way to go. As Janica leaves, Lortel thinks about her. She realizes Janica is not as innocent as she appears. Behind the cheerful, friendly exterior is someone strong, someone who uses her happiness as armor to survive in a dark world. But right now, something about Janica seems different, like she's carrying something difficult. Back at his camp, Ed is hanging his laundry when a strong gust of wind blows it all down. He turns to find Bella, the senior maid from Sylvania's office dormitory, the same one who once kicked him out of his room. She looks around at how he's been living and remarks that it's surprising, but she's genuinely happy to see some positive changes in him. The office hall maids are known for perfection in everything from cleaning to cooking. Ed can't stop staring at the basket Bella is carrying, filled with the finest ingredients she's collected from the forest. He doesn't hesitate. He asks for the basket. He knows it will significantly improve his crafting capabilities, opening up medicines, food, and other useful tools. He sees an opportunity to build a solid connection with the maid and takes it. Using the basket's contents, he crafts new tools and prepares a proper meal. At sunset, he sits down and actually enjoys the results of his work for a while. The rest doesn't last. Someone crashes down from the sky, destroying his entire tent and nearly killing him on impact. He looks up. It's Lucy. She lands in the wreckage of his camp, and seeing how furious he is, admits it was Bella who was in a bad mood for some reason and got angry with her earlier for skipping class. In her panic, she teleported to the only safe place she could think of, Ed's camp, and accidentally demolished it in the process. She shows no remorse whatsoever and asks if he has any beef jerky. Ed smacks her on the head and yells at her for making such a mess. He's surprised when the most powerful mage at the academy doesn't throw up a protective spell. Lucy winces and explains she's completely out of magic. Ed immediately recognizes this as the perfect opportunity. He decides to teach her a lesson for destroying his camp and skipping her classes. At the library, Ed searches for a book on building a sturdier house from real wood. He studies the materials, the structural design, techniques for smoothing wood and finishing a roof. He's so absorbed that he almost misses the closing time. While packing up, a girl approaches him and makes a friendly remark about his dedication to studying. He assumes she's the librarian's apprentice and quickly apologizes for staying so late. She smiles warmly and tells him it's not a problem at all, that watching someone study so seriously motivates her to work harder. She introduces herself as Ella Elin, a first-year student in the Faculty of Magic. When Ed gives his name in return, she freezes briefly, clearly surprised. He's used to that reaction by now, given his character's notorious reputation. She recovers quickly and tells him he seems very different from the rumors. She's particularly impressed that he managed to read and understand difficult texts on elemental studies so quickly. Before leaving, Ella says she'll be cheering for him and wishes him a safe trip home, saying she needs to get back to her dormitory to clean up. Ed watches her go and feels slightly encouraged by her kind words. Then the ground shakes. A loud crash fills the library, sending books tumbling from every shelf and burying both Ed and Ela in a cascade of falling volumes. On campus, students rush to a temporary camp led by Taylor. Among them, Isla recalls a passage from a spirit book she once read, a summoning ritual for Glaskin, the highest-ranked dark spirit. Fenia listens carefully as Isla explains that only someone with an extraordinarily deep connection to spirits could summon Glaskin. That person is Janica Failover. As the story dictates, Janica, now the final boss of Act 1, has lost control of the dark spirit and allowed it to take possession of her completely. Fenia understands the gravity of the situation. The barriers protecting the temporary camp will only hold for a limited time. Taylor steps forward and urges everyone to move to the student center immediately. If Glaskin fully manifests, casualties will be extremely high. The Royal Guard captain tries to reassure the students, explaining that the faculty and expert mages will notice the situation soon and intervene. But Alvera Aniston, an outspoken member of the alchemy faculty, pushes for immediate internal action. She warns that the dark spirit's power is too dangerous to wait for help, especially since Principal Oil is out of town. She calls for volunteers. Clebius, a combat department student and another key character, refuses instantly. He's clearly terrified. He explains that while intermediate-level spirits guard the building where Janica is located, two high-rank spirits are also inside, Tarkin and Philosopher. Entering the building is suicidal. He opposes the idea entirely. Alvera grows more puzzled, questioning how Janica, still a student, managed to summon all these spirits, including the effort needed to call for Glasskin. Isla, drawing on her knowledge of dark spirits, explains that they are natural enemies of spirit sorcerers. Their power often exceeds even skilled sorcerers' ability to control them, which likely explains why Janica couldn't hold on. The dark spirits now controlling Janica are using her abilities to summon Glasskin with the help of Tarkin and Philosopher, spirits whose commands remain a mystery. As the debate continues, Jix stands and reminds the group that a decision needs to be made quickly. He suggests only Princess Phinia can devise a proper strategy. Everyone looks to her. Phinia reflects for a moment, thinking of Ed's earlier remarks about the burden she carries and the importance of peace of mind. Then she announces her plan. Only the top students from each year and the royal guards will volunteer. They have 1 hour to prepare, enter the building, free Janica, and stop the summoning of Glasskin before the destruction can spread further. She encourages everyone to hold their resolve and takes full responsibility for whatever happens. A student runs up to her, visibly distressed, and informs her that the residents of the teaching area cannot assist. They're already defending Audrey Hall to protect the potion archives. Phinia asks if there are any other students available. Another student rushes to her, a frightened girl, and reports an emergency in the library. Ayla, the librarian apprentice, and a sophomore student are trapped inside. Jix reacts immediately. He grabs the girl by the shoulders and demands confirmation that Ayla is still in the library. When she confirms it, Jix panics, insisting that he has to save his best friend right now, because Ella has no way to defend herself. Phinia intervenes, ordering him to calm down. She reminds him that stopping Janica and the dark spirits is the priority. She assures him that Ayla may be safe since a sophomore student is also with her. Jix questions how much they can trust an unknown student to protect someone. Phinia turns to the frightened girl and asks if she knows the identity of the sophomore in the library. The girl hesitates, shaking, unable to speak. Jix presses her. Finally, in a trembling voice, she reveals that the sophomore in the library is Ed Rothstaylor. The room goes still. The girl starts crying, apologizing for abandoning the library earlier. She explains that she left Ayla in charge because Ed had been staying very late and his presence had annoyed her. Jix is furious. He refuses to leave Ayla alone with someone like Ed, whose reputation precedes him. His rage and fear for his best friend escalate the tension dramatically. Phinia, calmly and unexpectedly, advises Jix to relax and trust Ed for once. Her suggestion leaves everyone frozen in surprise. Jix doesn't find the advice amusing in the slightest. Fueled by worry and anger, he launches himself into the air, cutting through dark spirits as he charges toward the library, screaming Ed's name, determined to reach him and punish him personally if he touches Ella. Jix's story is unlike any of the others. He grew up wandering the harsh northern prairies, separated from his family at a young age with no memory of them. He survived by scavenging from corpses or hunting deer to sell their meat, living like a barbarian in a chaotic land where only the strong lasted. His life changed completely when he met Ayla. Her family treated him with kindness, helped him leave his wild ways behind, and made him more civilized. For Jix, Ayla is everything. He would do absolutely anything to protect her. He smashes through the library door, screaming Ed's name. He knows Ed only through bad rumors, cheating, bullying, nothing good. Inside, he finds Ed slumped against a wall, covered in blood, too weak to move. Jix grabs him and demands to know where Ayla is. Ed, injured and exhausted, simply points in her direction. Jix pushes him aside and runs. He finds Ayla lying safely on a shelf, asleep. He exhales, but then he notices the barricaded bookcases protecting her. He wonders who set them up. A blood-stained coat covers her. A board with written instructions sits nearby. The blood isn't hers. Slowly, Jix understands. Ed protected her. He fought off dark spirits, guarded her while injured, and left instructions for whoever found her. Moments before, Ed had used the strength his training gave him to lift heavy bookshelves and carry the unconscious Ayla. He set up barricades around her, placed her safely inside, wrote the instructions, and then stayed to guard the entrance. From the library window, he noticed the summoning rune outside but closed the curtain, choosing not to interfere with the major storyline unfolding elsewhere. He reflected on Janika's deep connection with spirits and couldn't understand how she could have turned toward the dark side. When dark spirits approached Ella, Ed fought them head-on. After defeating the intermediate-level spirits, he checked his stats. They'd improved. He even unlocked some spirit connection abilities. He stared at the numbers, genuinely curious about what he might be capable of. As Jix carries Ella to safety, he asks Ed what happened. Ed replies casually that he was just training. Jix laughs despite himself and thanks him, promising to repay the favor someday. Ed looks at him and recognizes who he is. Taylor's most trusted ally, his best friend in the game. He tells Jix to go find Taylor and follow his lead. The chaos needs to be addressed and Taylor is the one who has to address it. Jix is surprised to hear Ed speak so highly of Taylor when they barely interact. What Ed doesn't say out loud is his real motive. He needs Taylor to unlock his slash element, which is essential for defeating the high-ranked spirit Tarkin. In the original game, Jix plays a crucial role in that moment. He thanks Ed again and leaves. Ed finally sits down to rest. Then he notices something that immediately unsettles him. Jix and Taylor aren't friends yet. In the original game, their friendship begins after a duel where Taylor learns the slash element by cutting through Jix's magic, an event that was supposed to happen before the Act 1 finale. Things are happening earlier than they should. Without that friendship having formed, Taylor hasn't learned the slash element. The storyline is falling apart. Back at the camp, Jix returns carrying Ella and apologizes for arriving late. The team is already defeated. They tried to invade and failed. The captain, soldiers, and several students are injured, and they've had to retreat. There's no strength left to fight Tarkin again. Then Ed arrives. Everyone is surprised to see him. He takes one look at the situation and understands immediately. The ritual to summon Glasskin is almost complete. If they don't act now, everything will be destroyed. He knows stepping in will alter the storyline further. But he has no choice if he wants this world to survive. He takes charge. He forms two teams and announces he'll lead one of them himself. From this moment forward, Ed chooses to step into the storyline. Everyone stares at him. Clebius laughs outright. He thinks it's a joke, but Jix interrupts and urges everyone to hear Ed out. Ed explains the situation. To reach Janica, they need to distract Tarkin, the fire spirit, and simultaneously deal with Philosopher, the darkness spirit that's controlling her. Tarkin is protected by a powerful outer shell, which is why the first attempt failed. He proposes splitting into two teams, one to lure Tarkin away, the other to reach Janica directly. Lord Tell immediately disagrees, pointing out that they lack the training to handle a spirit as powerful as Tarkin. They only escaped the first attempt by sheer luck. Ed agrees it's an enormous risk, but insists there's no other way. If they can take out Janica, Tarkin will lose its power source. The group decides on assignments. Taylor volunteers to be in the bait team, but Ed stops him immediately and assigns Taylor to the combat group. He assigns himself, Lortel, and Clebius to the bait team. Both of them look terrified. Princess Fingia speaks up. She doesn't fully trust Ed, but she agrees with his plan. She divides the group. Taylor, Alvera, Jix, and herself will go to stop Janica. Ed, Lortel, and Clebius will lure Tarkin away. Before they set out, Fingia gives one final order to everyone. No matter what happens, don't die. As Ed's team reaches the Nail Hall corridor, they see Tarkin standing there menacingly. Ed reminds the team to follow the plan. Clebius hesitates, looking scared. Ed tells him to stay calm. Clebius tells himself their only job is to distract Tarkin. The other team will handle the rest. He gathers his courage, attacks Tarkin, and successfully grabs its attention. Then he turns around to ask what to do next. He's completely alone. Realizing he's been abandoned, Clebius panics as Tarkin starts chasing him. He runs as fast as his legs will carry him, screaming, blaming Ed and the entire situation at the top of his voice. Watching Clebius being chased, Ed calmly tells Lortel to focus on her part, assuring her that Clebius is doing his job. Lortel jokingly suggests they could let Clebius be sacrificed. Ed firmly disagrees. Nobody is getting hurt on his watch. He knows Clebius well from the story. Despite the fear and uncertainty, there's hidden strength in him. With Tarkin distracted, Ed turns to Lortel's most important task, handling the spirit. She stands outside the hall, focusing on her objective, create an entry path for the other team and deliver a key attack on Tarkin. As she prepares, she thinks about Ed. Despite his terrible reputation, he seems surprisingly impressive up close. She reminds herself not to judge someone based on rumors alone. She uses her magic to blow a massive hole in the hall's wall, opening a path directly to where Janica is being held. The force of the blast surprises even Princess Finia and the others. Ed had noticed Lortel's hidden magical ability earlier and knew exactly when and how to use it. He trusted her with the most important role, and she feels genuinely grateful for that confidence. With the path open, Lortel turns to fight Tarkin directly. Clebius comes sprinting back toward them moments later, screaming apologies, begging for help as Tarkin roars behind him. Ed quickly assesses the situation. Tarkin's protective shell blocks all attacks, just as it did before. They need something powerful enough to break through. Using his knowledge of the storyline, Ed grabs a pouch and climbs to the roof of the hall. He finds Lucy sleeping up there, completely at peace, utterly unconcerned with the catastrophe unfolding around her. She's not supposed to be part of this event, but since the story has already changed, Ed decides to use her. He opens his pouch, tosses a piece of beef jerky into Lucy's mouth to wake her, and then throws her directly at Tarkin while shouting for everyone to get down. Lucy, startled and furious at Ed for the indignity, unleashes her high-ranked ability, Divine Punishment, shattering Tarkin's protective shell and leaving the spirit completely vulnerable. Ed sees his chance. He rushes forward with everything he has and delivers the final blow to Tarkin's throat. For Janica, her whole life has been a weight she's carried since childhood. Everyone calls her a symbol of hope. Her parents, friends, teachers, all of them proud of her, piling on expectations without mercy. In her mind, those expectations shatter into fragments as the hall's wall explodes and the subduing team charges in to rescue her. Instead of relief, she greets them with an eerie, vacant smile. Velosphere, the dark spirit, is fully in control. Outside, Ed is trying to hold himself together. He knows the final act chapter will resolve before dawn. He checks on Lucy, who is somewhere nearby, rolling around after the effort of breaking Tarkin's shell. Lortel informs him she's been throwing ice spears at Tarkin, but it's still standing. Ed knows what he has to do. The only way to end this is to go straight for Tarkin's throat himself. Lucy has exhausted her energy. Clebius is still being chased and is too panicked to aim properly. Ed turns to Lortel. He tells her he's putting his life in her hands. He needs her to hold Tarkin still. She calls it a wild gamble. He grins and tells her to think of it as an investment in getting rid of the monster for her. That gets her attention. That's her area of expertise. She smiles and says he's way more impressive than the princess, who always acts like a royal monarch. Fired up, Lortel starts setting ice traps. Just as Ed charges toward Tarkin, another massive dark spirit appears on top of the hall building, Glaskin's right hand, making everything dramatically worse. Ed knows Taylor's team must be reaching the final stage of their fight. He trusts Lortel not to falter under the added pressure. As Tarkin lines up a fire blast aimed directly at him, Lortel nails the timing perfectly. Her traps block the attack and give Ed the opening he needs. He slides in close, channels his wind magic, and slices through Tarkin's throat. The fiery beast falls. Ed checks his stats and grins. His spirit magic levels have jumped significantly. He's unlocked a spirit contract slot, something he never thought he'd achieve. He glances over and spots Taylor across the field, calmly carving through Glaskin's right-hand spirit as though it's routine. Watching Taylor in action, Ed feels genuinely impressed. Taylor is fully living up to his protagonist role. With Tarkin defeated and Janica freed from Philosopher's control, the group catches its breath. They've done it. The danger is over. Lortel chuckles and remarks that she's met plenty of people who claim to be risking everything. Most of them turned out to be cowards. She's amused that even after a genuine life-and-death crisis, Ed shows almost no visible emotion. With a sly grin, she shakes his hand again, this time slipping 3 gold coins into his palm as a token of gratitude. Then Taylor arrives. His hair has turned white from the immense power he used to defeat Glaskin's right hand. There's resentment in his eyes as he looks at Ed. Ed can't help but admire how extraordinary Taylor looks in his swordsman form, embodying the protagonist role completely. Even with his own complicated feelings about Taylor, the sight is undeniably impressive. To Ed's surprise, Taylor bows deeply and thanks him for saving the Academy. His gratitude is genuine. Clebius, still shaken, interrupts by sobbing and ranting about how no one should ever trust someone like Ed. The outburst is quickly shut down by the others, leaving Clebius grumbling in the background. Princess Finia steps forward. With her usual composure, she thanks Ed sincerely and acknowledges everything he's done for them all. She offers him a position in the student council for his actions during the crisis. Ed gently declines, directing the credit to the team instead. Alvera teases him in her usual playful manner. Jix jumps in, insisting she show more respect. Ed smiles quietly, watching the group interact. Seeing all the key characters together makes him feel something warm. Even though he's been deliberately staying away from them to keep the storyline intact, watching them grow and bond gives him a quiet sense of fulfillment. Each character has their own path. Taylor growing stronger through every trial. Esla becoming more resilient alongside him. Phinia maturing into the monarch she's meant to be. Ed steps away from the group and heads into the hall to find Janica. He finds her hiding inside a chest in the destroyed hall, bruised and battered. Outside, when Ed asks why Janica lost control, Lortel shares her theory. When she visited Janica's room, it was covered in letters and gifts from people outside the academy. Family, friends, all of them with sky-high expectations. The overwhelming pressure made Janica obsessive and vulnerable, forcing her to reply to everyone, to honor every expectation placed on her. The dark spirit Velosphere exploited that darkness, turning her into a berserk spirit mage to summon Glaskin. Ed thinks about why the final act happened so early. He traces it back. In the original story, Taylor defeats Lucy and gains fame, putting him in the spotlight. But Taylor's loss shifted the audience's attention entirely to Janica, the only senior student to win against a first year. Suddenly, all the admiration, all the pressure, poured onto her. He also notes that while both Lucy and Janica made contracts with spirits, Lucy spent time in the forest strengthening her bond naturally. Janica never had that grounding. And Ed blames himself. His presence in the forest altered the dynamic and changed the game's storyline. Janica tells Ed she feels forgotten in the chaos, which hurts her deeply. She admits that after causing devastation on such a grand scale, she expected people to look for her, but they didn't. Ed consoles her and manages to make her laugh a little. She says she didn't expect him to find her so quickly and just wanted to stay hidden a little longer. She's on the edge of crying and can't hide it. Ed tears up slightly too. He recalls what Milda, the spirit wolf, told him, "Save Janica someday." He understands now. This is what that meant, preventing Janica from falling this deep into despair. He understands why the wolf said those words to him specifically. Everyone else puts pressure on Janica. Ed keeps his distance. And because of that distance, Janica has come to see him as the one person she can rely on precisely because he doesn't ask anything of her. Because of all that accumulated pressure, Janica made mistakes while trying to form a contract with a high-ranked spirit. She rushed through the summoning ritual and was overtaken by the dark spirit, causing the faculty building to be destroyed. She studies magic every night and tries to make everyone around her happy. On the outside, she meets every expectation. Inside, she's barely holding on. Seeing her work so hard and still fail is both beautiful and heartbreaking to Ed. He tells her she worked hard. He offers those words as comfort, simply and directly. Outside, the main characters are being celebrated and praised. Inside the hall, it's quiet and dark. Hearing Ed's kind words, Janica begins to cry. Then something remarkable happens. All of Janica's spirit friends appear in the hall to support him. For the first time, Ed can see the spirits. He's watched this part of the story play out many times through the game's screen, but he's never truly witnessed it until now. He feels like he's genuinely experiencing the end of the first act for the first time. His stats increase. He levels up to 10. He can now see spirit animals that want to form bonds with him. The high-ranked spirit wolf shows particular interest, and they form a bond. 10 days pass since Janica's disciplinary committee trial. She appears before them, admits her mistakes, and says she's ready to accept her punishment. Her friends and teachers stand by her throughout. The main characters argue that she shouldn't be punished. She was overpowered by a dark spirit and acted without intention. Even Lortel steps in, covering the restoration costs for the building and asking for nothing in return except a reduction in custom fees on school supplies. Janica's initial punishment included losing all her top student benefits, having her achievements revoked, and facing expulsion. Thanks to the pressure from her friends and teachers, the committee cancels the expulsion and settles on probation and suspension. Her friends are relieved she's staying, though they notice she seems more subdued than usual. To cheer her up, they organize a fancy tea party and agree not to bring up the incident around her. When her friends invite her to join them, Janica suddenly asks out of nowhere what the difference is between love and liking someone. Her two best friends, Annis and Clara, are immediately caught off guard. They ask why she's bringing this up. Janica says she's been having the same recurring dream. In it, she's sitting in a garden full of flowers, looking like a princess, holding a flower crown she made for a friend. Her friend arrives on horseback, looking quite dashing, and she places the crown on his head. They play together. The dream repeats exactly the same way every time. She smiles as she describes it. Annis and Clara exchange a look, both terrified they might accidentally stumble into Janica's secret love story. Annis panics and makes up an excuse about needing to help a professor, dashing away before things get more awkward. Clara is left alone, sweating nervously. She knows she needs to handle this carefully. If things go wrong, Janica's love story could become the gossip of the entire student body and make everything worse for her. Clara puts on a calm smile and gently advises Janica not to overthink. She encourages her to be honest with her feelings, but explains that figuring out whether those feelings are positive or negative isn't always simple. She also warns Janica to be careful when discussing sensitive topics like this, as it could affect both her reputation and her friends. Janica listens carefully and fully understands. She thanks Clara for the genuine advice, says it's exactly what she needed, makes an excuse about needing to report back to office hall and leaves. Clara finally slouches forward and butts her head on the table in sheer relief. She managed to keep the rumors contained. For now, Ed has been relentlessly saving his money. Thanks to a petition from the princess, he's been given permission to build a proper house this time. When he arrives at the construction site, he spots Janica wandering nearby. He thinks to himself that with the first act over, meeting her shouldn't affect the storyline anymore. But as he approaches, Janica hides behind a tree, clearly startled. Unable to overcome her nerves, she hastily makes an excuse about having things to do at office hall and flees. For Janica, saying anything to Ed feels like an impossible challenge. Ed stands there frozen and surprised, decides not to overthink it, and gets to work on building his house. On the first day, he carefully selects the location. On the second day, he begins collecting logs and wood, demonstrating impressive skill with tree cutting. When his semester results arrive, he discovers he's performed exceptionally well, skills and grades far above the average student. But strange things keep happening at the academy. Whenever Janica sees Ed, she hides or runs away. Her friends Clara and Annis glare at him and warn him repeatedly to stay away from her. His presence embarrasses her and makes her flustered. After countless days of hard work, Ed progresses from cutting lumber to actual construction. Along the way, he manages ongoing complications, catching Lucy stealing beef jerky from his traps, dealing with Bella's unexpected help, and navigating the ongoing mystery of Janica's behavior. He faces setbacks. The hut's structure fails to come together correctly at first, but finds support from his new friend Jix. Bit by bit, he works through the wall design and furniture. On day 45, Ed completes his hut, unlocking a personal achievement for creating something entirely from scratch. He is no longer homeless. As he rests inside his newly finished hut, Janica watches quietly from behind a tree in the forest, observing the place he made. After finishing the final touches, wall flooring, fireplace, firewood storage, Ed steps back to admire the result. Then he notices Lucy sleeping lazily on the roof, and then Janica appears, greeting him cheerfully. Ed, startled, asks how she found her way to his remote campsite. She explains that the maid told her about his beautiful hut, calling it a masterpiece. She marvels at the craftsmanship and natural beauty, wandering around and voicing her admiration loudly. When Ed asks if the spirits told her, Janica blushes and admits they mentioned it, but teases that the spirits were more focused on how handsome Ed looked while building it. She laughs nervously, hiding something deeper, and says she simply wanted to check how he was living. Ed smiles and invites her inside. Blushing, she nods and follows him. Lucy sprawls on the roof. Janica gasps in amazement at the handiwork. Sitting near the fireplace, she shares her gratitude for the support Lortel and her friends have given her during her difficult time. But she also expresses worry about how to repay them. Ed advises her not to burden herself with repayment she can't afford. He remembers that the dark spirit incident happened precisely because she took on too much unnecessary responsibility. Moving into Office Hall and gaining 8 more people expecting things from her won't help. The cycle of envy and expectations will only continue. He wants to help her break that pattern. After they've talked for a while, Ed encourages Janica to visit anytime she feels lonely or overwhelmed. She's welcome at his hut and in the forest whenever she needs it. Touched and surprised, Janica smiles warmly and says it would make her very happy. She extends the same offer back. If he ever feels overwhelmed, she wants him to come to her. Ed smiles back but sighs quietly at the word overwhelmed. He knows the second semester is approaching. Act 2 is coming. The Sage's Sealed Grimoire, a book containing records of advanced and dangerous magics, will create chaos capable of consuming the entire academy. He thanks Janica for the offer, keeping his thoughts to himself. He knows he'll remain on the sidelines, letting the main characters handle the challenges ahead, quietly cheering them on. On a dark and stormy night, Act 2 begins. Students from Office Hall live like royalty. First choice seating, personal maids, extra freedoms that set them distinctly apart from students in Dex's Hall, who receive none of the same treatment. When vacation ends, a heavy rainstorm hits the southwest side of the academy. Office Hall students are given horse carriages and boats to return safely. Those who are late are permitted extra days without punishment. Dex's Hall students have no such luxury. They travel through the downpour and risk losing points for tardiness. The unfair treatment enrages the Dex's Hall students. They come together to protest and demand equal treatment. They want answers. Behind the scenes, Lortel and a clever agitator named Willing are stirring things up. Willing is gifted with words and skilled at manipulating people into making things worse. The students genuinely want fairness. Willing's real goal is chaos and damage to Office Hall's reputation. Together, they push the situation toward a full-blown riot. Lortel proposes a fair resolution, extend the deadline for students returning after the storm, and officially acknowledge that Office Hall students receive special treatment. The head maids of Office Hall and the Academy's review division support her plan, but the administration shows little interest. Their inaction only fuels the protest. The students go on strike. They plan to burn and damage Office Hall's valuable assets, hardwood furniture, artisan-crafted paintings, to force the authorities to act. Willing benefits from the chaos by using it to damage the Academy's reputation. Lortel, through her position in the Merchant Association, uses the Academy's difficulties to advance her own goals already complicated by the Glasskin incident. While negotiations continue, the elite Merchant Association seizes the opportunity to gain a significant advantage by targeting the Sage's Sealed Grimoire, the very heart of Sylvania Academy. Its value is so immense that people in desperation would offer anything for it, even their hearts. As protests rage outside the hall, Lortel gazes out the window at the pouring rain. She recalls her childhood in the slums, wandering in tattered rags under the same dark sky. The memory brings a bitter smile to her face. Her entire life has been a relentless struggle marked by betrayal, suspicion, and an inability to show genuine sincerity. She's been scared by all of it, yet deep down, she wishes someone among these students could see her for who she really is, a survivor. She decides to seek out people like herself, those who have also lived as gutter rats. Ed describes Lortel as a shadowy figure, always hiding the harsh truths behind a composed surface. That's why the audience and players of the game call her the Black Veil. In the original storyline, the Office Hall occupation centers on Taylor stopping the students provoked into rising against Lortel. Along the way, Taylor and his friends face middle bosses stationed on each floor, 1st through 5th, who aid the rioting students. The first middle boss is Tot, known as the Decoy, a bitter student who mocks Taylor and eventually gets beaten and humiliated. This fuels his grudge, and Lortel later buys his loyalty. His role in the incident is to capture the maid guarding the first floor and sabotage the front door, allowing the rioters to storm inside. However, when Willing confronts the mysterious figure responsible for opening the door, what he finds isn't Tot. It's Ed Rothstaylor. Ed explains how he ended up in this position. Just 2 days before the Office Hall incident, he was struggling to hunt with a bow and arrow, no combat skills, terrible aim, pushing himself through the pain. His campsite had become a regular stop for frequent visitors now that people knew where he lived in the woods. 3 in particular came most often. The first was Lucy, who always asked questions Ed didn't have many answers to. The second was Janica, who had developed feelings for Ed. He liked her too, in his own complicated way. She often brought him food, taught him laundry tricks, helped with tasks. When he complimented her, she'd blush and act strangely, which confused him because she was easy to read. Sometimes she seemed jealous when Lucy visited. The third was Lortel, who visited at night. She always needed something, and Ed had gradually realized she was building up the group of people who would help her take control of Office Hall. One night, she laid out her plan. She wanted his help to sabotage the hall. Ed refused initially. He didn't want to interfere with the game's storyline. He believed that if he stayed out of it, things would follow their intended path. But then Lortel mentioned that Tot had dropped out after a confrontation with Taylor. Ed became immediately worried. In the original story, Tot was supposed to fight Taylor and get badly beaten. But this time, when Tot insulted Taylor by calling him worse than Ed Roth, it made Jix angrier than expected, and Jix finished the fight instead. With a foxy smile, Lortel told Ed she didn't need much from him, just one simple task: take the keys from the maid and open the door when the protesting students gathered outside. Ed realized the truth. If the hall's doors stayed closed and Lortel's plan fell apart, the story would spiral completely out of control. Even though he didn't want to get involved, he had no choice if he wanted to keep Act 2 on track. He told Lortel he wasn't interested in full involvement, but was willing to help if his role stayed small. She agreed and offered 20 gold coins. Their deal was struck. Ed agreed to play his small part, determined to ensure the storyline stayed intact. He sits near his campfire afterward, thinking about what the protest's success means downstream. He remembers the fight over the sage's sealed grimoire and Lortel's clever scheme to disrupt the Academy's finances. The thought gives him chills. He also finds the whole intricate situation fascinating. At the Academy, Princess Finia and Lortel find themselves at the center of a major rivalry. Lortel has formed a group called Merchantry, a business-focused faction that openly challenges Finia's student association. The outcome of the story depends on which side Taylor, the main hero, ultimately chooses. Ed has no interest in picking a side early on. His plan is to watch and join the winning side later, ensuring he survives and secures a good ending. Before the protest, Janica visits Ed at his hut. She thanks him for always letting her come by and tells him she's moving to Dex's Hall since her suspension is ending. She offers him extra things she doesn't need: cushions, pillows. Ed happily accepts, which makes her smile. Janica notices Lucy sitting on the roof in the rain and asks why she does that. Ed remembers Lucy's story, her habit of avoiding her fate and reflecting on her life on rainy days. He tells Janica not to worry about it, which seems to make her feel happier and somehow special. Ed then asks Janica for a favor. He knows that when the protesters invade Office Hall, magical protection runes will activate and lock everyone in their rooms for safety. He doesn't want Janica caught in the chaos. He asks her to meet him at the Rose Garden outside the hall at 9 in the evening. Janica immediately thinks Ed is planning to confess his feelings and gets excited. She runs off blushing and waving goodbye. Ed watches her go and feels relieved. He just wants her out of harm's way. Back at the protest, Jix is in his room exercising. He notices someone slipping in through the back door of the hall. It's Ed, led inside by a maid. The maid tells him the other staff are in a meeting trying to figure out how to block the protesters, then gives Ed the supplies he requested and leaves. Outside, Willen urges the students to break the door down. Before they can, Ed opens it from inside. Willen meets Ed and realizes he's the person Lortel hired. Seeing the tied-up maid and hearing Ed's story about having once been kicked out of the hall himself, Willen feels moved. He apologizes for doubting him and thanks him for his support. Ed brushes it off and tells Willen to get to work upstairs, pushing the plot forward. He knows Willen will eventually take the blame for everything, but doesn't feel too guilty about it. It's all part of the game. Looking around the hall, Ed watches the maid untie herself and run to report. He doesn't stop her. He knows the chief maid Alice is on Lortel's side and won't be able to stop the protesters in time. Just as he observes the unfolding chaos, Lortel appears, the Black Veil herself, setting the stage for the next chapter. Lortel explains to Ed that the Academy staff will put an end to the chaos quickly, so she needs to complete her plans fast. Ed, uninterested in the details, tells her to do what she came to do. As she heads upstairs, she pauses and asks Ed a dark question. Has he ever killed someone? He says he hasn't. She admits she hasn't either, but she's done things just as bad. Destroying lives. Betraying people to survive. That's how she earned the title Golden Daughter. She knows she doesn't deserve sympathy, but she often finds herself looking for it in people like Ed, people who might actually offer some understanding. Instead of denying her outright, Ed warns her to take responsibility for her own actions. Lortel smiles with her usual slyness and excuses herself to go upstairs. Ed sits on the floor and waits for the hall's magical defenses to cycle down. He knows what comes next. Willing will absorb the hall's defense magic and transform into the fourth stage boss of the game. Ed's role in the events is complete. He relaxes and waits for Taylor to show up. This is the hero's moment, not his. His job now is to play the minor villain, take some hits, and keep the story moving. A necessary sacrifice to ensure the game stays on track. At the Rose Garden, Janica sits nervously waiting for Ed. A golden carriage is parked nearby and she wonders who it belongs to at such a late hour. She finds a letter on the bench from Ed, apologizing for being late and promising to join her as soon as he finishes some work. She blushes, assumes he's planning something special, and resolves to wait as long as it takes. Her mind is full of thoughts about him. For the past 3 days she hasn't been able to stop thinking about him, even losing sleep over it. She also feels conflicted because Milda told her about other girls visiting Ed's hut, and the knowledge makes her feel both guilty and heartbroken. Still, her feelings are strong and she's determined to wait. As she sits, she suddenly becomes self-conscious about her appearance. She wonders whether her flower hairpin is good enough or if the Cosmos pin would be better. Overthinking it, she decides to run back to her hall to change and then return quickly. Meanwhile, Taylor, Alvera, and Isla arrive outside Office Hall. They see footprints leading to the open main gate and realize the protesters have already stormed inside. Alvera immediately charges in, furious at the thought of her belongings being damaged. Taylor and Isla follow her to prevent her from using dangerous magic and escalating the situation. Alvera forces the door open wider and finds Ed Roth sitting calmly in their path. Confused, Taylor asks why he's there. Looking at the chaos in the hall around them, Taylor and his friends quickly understand. Ed intends to block their path to the 4th floor. He's playing the villain. Ed confirms this and says he won't let them pass. Alvera steps forward, confidently citing her magical abilities and claiming she can easily defeat him. Ed, unfazed, warns her calmly that she's still just a rookie. She and the others prepare to fight. Ed readies himself to hold them back. Taylor makes the first move, charging at Ed. With skillful precision, Ed uses a spell to hurl rubble into Taylor's path, disrupting the attack. Then he activates a wind spell and cuts the chandelier above him, sending it crashing into the wall and striking Taylor to the ground. Inside one of the rooms, Clabius sits trembling, scared by the loud noises from the protesters outside. The shouting and crashing are making his imagination run wild. Out in the hall, Taylor and Isla dodge Ed's wind magic while Alvera keeps trying to push forward. Ed uses his spells with sharp precision, making it nearly impossible for them to advance. As Alvera presses ahead, a wind blade cuts through the air near her. Her bag falls, spilling her important spells and items across the floor. She turns back to grab them, but Ed casts a fire spell, creating a wall of flames around the scattered items. She can't reach them. Ed moves quickly, controls the fight instinctively, and anticipates every move. Alvera, frustrated, starts blaming Jix for not warning them how strong Ed actually is. She realizes they completely underestimated him. His magic is far more powerful than anything she expected. She also realizes something important. Ed understands the Academy's biggest flaw. The students rely excessively on magic tools and potions, leaving them with almost no real combat skills. She reflects on her own overconfidence, her dependence on spells, her dismissal of rings and necklaces as inconvenient. It has outsmarted her, dropping the chandelier, using a small opening to cast the firewall, targeting her bag specifically. The top first-year alchemy student is rendered helpless. She curses him loudly and hurls a spirit bead onto the ground, summoning a spirit rabbit. She applies a fire-resistant formula to it, amplifying its strength and turning it into a berserk attacker. The rabbit becomes her weapon to regain control. Isla and Taylor, meanwhile, are struggling to navigate the firewalls Ed has set up. Isla attempts a water spell to douse the flames, but the firewalls are protected by wind magic. They strike back at anyone who gets too close. Taylor shields Isla from the sharp wind blades and encourages her to keep trying. He knows Isla excels in magic theory and can cast basic spells above average, but Ed's precise targeting keeps them both pinned down. Alvera calls out to Taylor, asking if he can take Ed down if he gets close enough. Without waiting for an answer, she orders the spirit rabbit to attack and uses it as a distraction to create an opening for Taylor. The rabbit charges. Taylor pushes forward, While Ed is occupied with the rabbit, Alvera rushes toward her bag, ignoring the firewalls and narrowly avoiding his spells. She reaches her scattered items, clutches them in relief, and smiles, ready to turn the fight around. But Ed immediately casts a windblade spell at her while fending off the rabbit. Alvera spots the incoming attack, confidently shuts her eyes, and casts a released magic spell. The spell neutralizes all of Ed's active magic, turning it into harmless chemical reagents and temporarily preventing him from casting anything at all. With the rabbit gone and his magic disabled, Ed realizes he's outmatched. He runs. Taylor doesn't let him escape. He chases Ed up the stairs. At the top, Ed grabs a bucket of fire oil he prepared earlier and spills it across the floor. The oil ignites, flames spreading rapidly. Taylor and the others hesitate. If the fire consumes the hall, everyone inside is in danger. But Taylor, resolute in stopping Ed and ending the chaos, uses an elemental slash to extinguish the flames and clear the path. He charges without hesitation. Alvera notices something. The carpets in the hall have been removed. The windows are wide open. It clicks. Ed prepared this area specifically to minimize the fire's danger. Before she can warn Taylor that Ed might not be what he appears, Taylor closes the gap. As Taylor gets within striking range, Ed raises his bow and fires an arrow, not at Taylor, but at Isla. The arrow whistles past Taylor straight toward her. At the last moment, Alvera leaps in and intercepts it with her claw tool. She examines the tip. It's wrapped in cloth, not sharp. Alarmed, she warns Taylor that Ed might have another trick ready. Taylor reaches Ed and swings his sword. Ed blocks with his bow, holding him off briefly. Then a noise from above catches Ed's attention. Clebius has escaped from his room. The next phase of the act has begun. Ed registers this with visible relief. His role is complete. He lets Taylor's next strike land. The force of the elemental slash sends him flying into the wall. The battle ends with Ed defeated and everyone stunned, questioning his true motives as though he was playing a far deeper game all along. Taylor grabs him and demands to know why Ed went so far to stop them. Alvera watches uneasily, sensing that Ed has been playing with them the entire fight. Something doesn't add up. He's a second-year student with more experience. If he truly wanted to overpower them, he could have ambushed them after the chandelier fell. Instead, he stood his ground and deliberately engaged them, seemingly to delay rather than win. The group senses something is off. Ed's actions feel driven by a deeper motive. Taylor shoves him away, frustrated. Weak and injured, Ed speaks quietly but firmly, telling them to go upstairs if they're done wasting time on him. Stop the real chaos. His words leave them frozen. Alvera demands to know why he tried so hard to hold them back if he's now telling them to go. Taylor and Isla press him. Alvera's voice rises. She won't leave until Ed tells them the truth. Before he can answer, the hall door creaks open. A girl steps inside, shielding herself from the rain with her hood. She lowers it and her eyes go wide at the scene in front of her. Taylor, Alvera, and Isla standing over a battered, bloodied Ed with the hall in complete disarray. It's Janica. She had been waiting for Ed at the Rose Garden and thought he might be at the pavilion nearby. Seeing him like this, her heart drops. Shocked and desperate, she cries out, asking what they've done to the hall and to Ed. Her voice echoes in the tense silence, and everyone goes still. For Janica, Ed has become someone extraordinarily important. He makes her feel special in ways she can't fully explain. Despite everything, the complicated circumstances, the chaos that follows him, his simple way of living and the way he treated her during the Glaskin crisis have made her care for him deeply. He always seems to find a way through, no matter the problem. Standing there looking at him battered and surrounded by destruction, she begins to understand. He lured her out of the hall tonight to protect her from all of this. He knew she'd already been punished for the Glaskin incident. He didn't want her near this mess, and now she understands the weight of what he's done for her, quietly and without asking for anything. She wants to repay that. She doesn't wait to be asked. Janica removes her hairpin, sets aside her appearance and every distraction. She focuses. She gathers herself. Her tone shifts entirely. Authority fills her voice as she demands to know what everyone is doing. Her presence changes the entire room. She is no longer the anxious girl who hid behind trees. She is something stronger. Taylor, still unsure of her intentions, quickly explains that protesters have taken over the hall and that Ed has been behaving irrationally, blocking them from reaching the top floor. He suggests that Ed might have been trying to protect someone else inside the hall. Alvera cuts in sharply. warning that the shift in Janika's demeanor is alarming. She could be their enemy. Then Janika releases a powerful aura. Immense air pressure swirls violently through the entire hall. Ed, alarmed, calls out her name. She turns to him calmly and tells him to be okay. Taylor and his group stand frozen, wide-eyed and sweating, as Janika summons an entire battalion of intermediate-level spirit beasts, displaying overwhelming power. Realizing the gravity of what's before them, Alvera panics and insists they retreat. Fighting Janika in this state is far beyond their abilities. But Taylor, being who he is, refuses to back down. His determination keeps him rooted in place. Alvera desperately tries to make him see reason. Ed intervenes. Despite how weak and injured he is, he grabs Taylor and shoves him aside, saving him from a crushing blow by one of Janika's spirit beasts. He orders Taylor and the group to leave and stick to the original plan. Confused and shaken, they ask why Ed, who worked so hard to stop them, is now pushing them upstairs. Alvera argues against leaving the fight behind. Ed lightly taps her on the head, hands her bag of chemicals back to her, and tells them firmly to do as he says. Realizing they have no choice, they go. They rush upstairs. Ed and Janika are left alone in the hall below. While Janika is still deep in her summing, Ed approaches her slowly. She notices him and tries to reassure him. She'll handle everything. He doesn't need to push himself anymore. Ed, weak and trembling, says her name softly and places his hands on her shoulders. It's the first time he's ever touched her this way. She goes momentarily speechless. In a quiet voice, he asks her to call off her spirits. The wind is too strong. He can barely stand. Seeing him like that, pitiful, honest, exhausted, Janika's heart softens completely. She cancels her magic immediately, dismissing the spirit beasts and returning calm to the hall. Taylor and the others, watching from the stairs, are stunned that Ed managed to stop her so effortlessly. Ed turns to them and tells them to go. Time is running out. As he finishes speaking, his exhaustion overtakes him, and he collapses. Some time later, Ed and Janika sit together. She's gently tending to his wounds, her face full of worry. She scolds Taylor and the group for being too rough. Ed, trying to ease her concern, jokes about getting revenge the next time he sees Taylor and the others. This makes Janika even more worried, and she urges him to promise he won't get hurt again. He feels grateful for her care and thanks her quietly. He feels relieved that he completed his task, even if things didn't go perfectly. Now all he wants is rest. He gets to his feet, ready to head back to his camp. Before he steps away, Janika hesitates and tells him something strange she noticed earlier. A large carriage adorned with a golden crown was parked near the garden. Ed freezes. He knows that symbol immediately. It belongs to the leader of the Merchant Association's elite, the Golden King, who also happens to be Lortel's adoptive father. In the game's storyline, the Golden King appears much later as a fake antagonist before being defeated by Lortel in Act 2. His presence this early outside this hall on this night is wrong. Something is happening beyond the boundaries of what Ed knows. Meanwhile, on the 5th floor of the hall, Lortel stands at a large window, cold, calculating. Beside her is Alice, the chief maid. Lortel speaks to her, recounting her earlier encounter with Ed. She describes him as cruel and unfeeling, how he dismissed her pleas for sympathy without hesitation. She reflects on how people like herself, shaped by lives of hardship and betrayal, have learned to expect nothing but cold indifference from the world. Alice has been working in Office Hall since she was 15 and has risen from nothing to become the hall's manager through years of hard work and competence. Recognizing Alice's strength and influence, Lortel invested heavily in securing her loyalty. She offers Alice a box of gold coins and thanks her for being on her side. Though Alice stays quiet, Lortel believes she's found someone like herself, someone willing to set aside their values for gold. A kindred spirit. Her thoughts drift briefly back to the slums, the daily struggle to survive, the commonplace betrayal. Despite those origins, she's embraced her role as the hidden villain of this story, using cunning and manipulation to reach her goals. Her current plan: give Berserker defense magic to Willing's group on the 4th floor to destroy Office Hall from the inside, targeting the students within it as well. Confident in her plan, Lortel walks with Alice toward the storage room to set things in motion. She assumes Alice is completely on her side. Her gold secured it. Then Alice draws her sword and points it at Lortel's neck. Her aura flares. The atmosphere becomes heavy with tension. She announces coldly that she is not from the same kind as Lortel. The words hit Lortel like a physical blow. For the first time, something cracks in her carefully constructed world. The realization of her solitude sinking all the way in. She stands motionless, caught between fear and disbelief as Alice's blade hovers inches from her neck. The game continues. Taylor and his team face one challenge after another. They calm the panicked Clebius, defeat the maid bosses, and handle every problem with growing skill. After the brutal fights on the lower floors, things begin to flow more smoothly. Then they reach the fourth floor. Chaos. Willing is trapped in the effects of the defensive magic runes and completely losing control. His body glows with unstable energy. The crystal ball of defensive magic in his hands becomes dangerously volatile. He cries for help, but the magic is overtaking his body and mind. Students panic, convinced the building is about to collapse. They pour out of their rooms in a frenzy, adding to the danger. Taylor and his group move fast. Taylor blocks Willen's blasts of magic to protect the evacuating students while the rest of the team helps move people to safety. Once the students are out, they turn their full attention to Willen, still under the rune's grip, his attacks growing stronger, destructive magic spreading through the hall. Alvera realizes normal magic won't stop him. She pulls out an anglerweed reagent, a special substance that can weaken magic, and prepares to help. She tells the group they need to physically knock Willen unconscious, because spells alone won't save him. Taylor takes charge and runs toward Willen, while Alvera tosses the terrified Clebius ahead as a distraction. The group moves in a zigzag pattern to avoid Willen's wild swings. The air is thick with powerful magic and intense pressure. Taylor gets close, ready to end it, but the magic runes become too unstable. Willen's body blazes brighter and brighter. A massive explosion shakes the entire hall. The situation has become complete disaster. Ed and Janica watch the explosion from the garden. Janica, still hovering over Ed's wounds, urges him to rest. He reassures her that most of the blood isn't his and tries to ease her worry. But his attention isn't on the explosion. His greatest concern is the carriage parked outside the hall, the one belonging to the Golden King, Lortel's adoptive father, a character who is not supposed to appear in this act of the game. His discreet, unexpected arrival raises every alarm bell in Ed's mind. His eyes narrow as he pieces it together. What catches his attention next is even more unsettling. Shenny, one of the maids of Office Hall, a subordinate of Alice, stands by the carriage, waiting for the Golden King. Alice is someone Lortel invested in heavily to secure loyalty. For Shenny, one of Alice's most trusted maids, to be seen with the elite here and now is deeply wrong. It suggests something beneath the surface, a crack in Alice's supposed loyalty to Lortel. The pieces fall into place in Ed's mind. Shenny is working with the elite. Alice may have betrayed Lortel entirely. Ed understands the gravity of this. Lortel is essential to the progression of the game's later acts. If the elite takes over Office Hall and gains access to the sealed grimoire, Lortel's downfall could trigger the entire story's unraveling. Ed knows he needs to act now. He decides to intercept, to do whatever it takes to keep the Golden King away from entering the building and disrupting the original storyline. Before the chaos of the protest began, Alice, the chief maid of Office Hall, secretly wrote a letter to the elite Merchant King. In it, she exposed everything: his relationship to Lortel as her adoptive father, his responsibility for the murder of Lortel's biological father, and Lortel's plans to manipulate the business magnates and directors of the elite merchantry to overthrow him. She also detailed Lortel's scheme to acquire or sabotage the Sage's sealed grimoire, a critical strike intended to remove the Golden King from power in the Merchant Association by surprise. Alice ended the letter with a bold demand for more money than Lortel had offered her, promising to switch sides and create a dramatic turn of events in the Golden King's favor. Now with her sword pressed against Lortel's neck, Alice waits for the Golden King's arrival. Lortel, who is usually composed and confident in every situation, is shaken. She pleads with Alice, pointing out that they both wanted revenge against the Golden King. They had the same enemy. Alice sighs and apologizes, but delivers a brutal truth. She tells Lortel that they, including the Golden King, are not so different. All of them are driven by the same things: ambition and survival. Her words cut deep. Lortel is left speechless. Then an explosion echoes through the hall as the door bursts open. Taylor and his group arrive, dragging a restrained and defeated Willen behind them. They're battered but still standing. Alvera quickly assesses the situation, deducing that Alice must be the one behind the chaos. as only she could have provided, willing with the defensive magic runes. Spotting her opportunity in the confusion, Lortel collapses dramatically to the floor. Taylor and his group rush to check on her, concerned for her well-being. Hiding her tears and masking her turmoil behind a performance of helplessness, Lortel suddenly gets up without a word, sprints away, and retreats to her room. Her mind is already racing with what to do next. Lortel stands frozen as the Golden King arrives. The man who pulled all the strings from the shadows has come to Office Hall himself. Though shocked, she quickly shifts her focus to the opportunity now in front of her. She can blame him for large-scale tampering with the Merchant Association's account books and for the damage caused during the chaos. His downfall feels suddenly within reach. She knows exactly what she has to do. Get to her room where a carrier pigeon is hidden, send a message to the Merchant Association's officials exposing the Golden King's crimes, and then find somewhere in the hall to hide until it's safe. Even though Alice's betrayal cuts deeply, Lortel doesn't let herself cry. She's used to being hurt. She's learned to blame others to protect herself. Wiping away the feeling, she moves quickly toward her room. At the same moment, the Golden King enters the hall with his guards. He spots a student near the entrance and calmly advises them to evacuate for safety. The student doesn't move. He informs the Golden King that nobody is allowed inside due to safety protocols. The student is Ed, standing in front of the stairs like a wall. The Golden King maintains his calm and asks if Ed has any official authority or permit to enforce this rule. Ed replies boldly that he's acting on his own judgment. In this tense standoff, Ed evaluates the players. He knows that only 3 people truly understand the flow of this story. Lortel, who wants revenge on the elite for destroying her childhood and plans to remove him from power. The Golden King himself, who seeks the sage's sealed grimoire for ultimate power. And Alice, the chief maid, who has become the central villain of this act through her betrayal of Lortel. Ed decides to trust Taylor and his group to deal with Alice, the act's main antagonist. While he focuses on keeping the elite from ascending the stairs, he preserves his understanding of the game's storyline and protects his role in the ending. The Golden King tries to defuse the situation, claiming he only needs to consult with the Academy about the chaos inside. Ed remains unmoved. His unyielding stance begins to irritate the elite, who activates his aura and asks pointedly whether Ed is siding with Lortel. 10 minutes before the confrontation with the Golden King, Ed and Janica arrived at Jix's room. To their surprise, Jix is calmly exercising while the building is in chaos with most students already evacuated. They ask why he hasn't left. He explains he prefers to avoid rash actions and focuses on his routine rather than getting swept up in the protest. Noticing Janica and Ed together, Jix foolishly asks if they're dating. Janica immediately yells a denial. Then she becomes flustered, making eye contact with Ed, worried she might have made him uncomfortable. Ed subtly signals Jix that the question was careless. Jix hurriedly apologizes. After a brief pause, he asks why they've come, especially since they apparently broke part of his wall getting in. Ed straightforwardly asks for a favor and promises to repay it later. Jix seems reluctant at first, but eventually agrees. Back in the hall, as the Golden King argues with Ed, Janica and Jix observe the scene from a hidden position. The elite tries to paint Lortel as treacherous and ungrateful, recounting how he raised her since childhood and accusing her of plotting against him. He even offers to double whatever Lortel promised to anyone on her side. Ed stands firm, making it clear that money and personal gain mean nothing to him. Frustrated, the Golden King gives up on diplomacy and orders his guards to dispose of Ed. As they surround and overpower him, Jix springs into action. Using wind magic, he sends guards flying in all directions. Jix and Janica reveal themselves, stepping in to help Ed. Janica summons her spirit companions while Jix prepares for a fight. Ed thanks them both and promises Jix he'll repay him before heading upstairs to check on Lortel. The Golden King, realizing these students are formidable opponents, commands his guards to fight with everything they have. A fierce battle erupts as Jix and Janica engage the guards and hold their ground. Ed rushes upstairs floor by floor. When he finally spots Lortel, he doesn't waste a second. He urgently tells her to escape through the hall's back door and run as fast as she can. In Lortel's world, kindness always comes with a price tag, a reason, a coin. Everyone she's trusted has only shown loyalty because she invested in them. Now, reflecting on her choices, she regrets the foolish mistake of ever believing in anything else. She had looked up to Janica, who seemed to grow up surrounded by love and care from others without expecting anything in return. Watching Janica and Ed's connection, built on trust and understanding, had made Lortel wonder if she could ever have that kind of bond. But now, betrayed by Alice after sharing everything, she feels foolish. She scolds herself for ever thinking she could live like Janica. She should have stayed true to her cold, calculating self. Of the 5 people she trusted to help occupy the hall, Alice betrayed her. The twin maids Shenny and Kelly joined Alice. Even Willen leaned toward the elite. The only one left was Ed, and Lortel has already convinced herself that he'll betray her eventually too. Why wouldn't he? As they run through the hall, Ed asks if Alice betrayed her. Lortel suddenly stops. Her voice is low and regretful as she apologizes, saying she can't guarantee the 20 gold coins she promised him anymore. The situation is too unstable. She's lost control, but Ed doesn't care about the money. He tells her firmly he's not doing this for gold. Without hesitation, he grabs her arm and pulls her forward. He tells her that if the elite catches her, it's all over. They need to move. Hearing his words, Lortel is stunned. For the first time, she wonders if Ed sees something in her worth believing in. She begins to question her assumptions about trust, wondering if people who act without hidden motives actually exist. The idea confuses and unsettles her. As they run, Ed asks what's really happening with the Merchant Association and why the Golden King came to the Academy himself. Lortel explains her adoptive father, Elite Ketlin, has been covering losses caused by manipulating market prices through secret deals and monopolizing the armor trade within the association. This has left him in desperate need of money to maintain his position. To solve his financial problems, he planned to sell the Sage's sealed grimoire at a high price and sent Lortel to the Academy to find a way to steal or sabotage it. For years, Lortel has been working to build alliances within the Merchant Association, buying the loyalty of merchants and committee members, turning them to her side. Her ultimate goal is to expose her adoptive father's manipulations and remove him from power. Revenge for her past. Ed puts it together. Kelthin's desperation explains his early arrival. His rushed moves to monopolize the armor trade and secure the grimoire have put him in a vulnerable position. Keeping Lortel safe is essential to ensuring her plans succeed and the storyline stays intact. Lortel adds that her plans can only work if her father is away from the merchantry headquarters. With him gone, the merchants on her side will have the chance to transfer the rights of sale to her. Ed realizes the full picture. Lortel has been using this elaborate scheme to disrupt the Academy's finances by burning Office Hall. That chaos would push the grimoire negotiations in the elite's favor. Now, with the elite's urgent need for money bringing him to the Academy in person, Lortel has a perfect window to send a message to her allies and execute her plan to bankrupt him. Surprised by how quickly Ed grasped everything, Lortel informs him that she has a carrier pigeon ready to deliver the message to her allies. She also reveals that her father expected her to get caught, and planned to use that to expose the traitors inside the merchantry. When they reach her room, Ed pauses and gives her detailed instructions. Stay hidden, avoid being seen, escape using the horsemen in the quarters, ride to the Arkan Mountains, leave the horse carriage at a specific point to mislead the guards, and hide at his place in the forest for 3 days. He will write and send the message to her allies from her room. He notices someone suspicious guarding the back door and warns her to wait until it's safe. He grabs her shoulders and looks at her directly, emphasizing, "Stay hidden." Lortel is stunned by how calmly and decisively he handles everything. For the first time, she starts to trust him. She asks softly, almost innocently, why he's helping her so much. Ed says simply that he feels like he should. No other reason. He leaves the room. Alone, Lortel sits down, completely confused by the feeling now spreading through her. She hears a loud beating sound. She realizes quickly that it's her own heartbeat. Someone just helped her with genuine kindness, expecting absolutely nothing in return. This unfamiliar warmth fills her with emotions she doesn't have names for. Meanwhile, at the back door, Shenny, one of the twin maids, stands guard. Ed approaches, ready to confront her. Inside the hall, Taylor's group battles Alice in the climactic confrontation. Alice gathers all the hall's runes and takes control of their magic, launching powerful attacks. Despite her expertise as a veteran intermediate magic user, she cannot match Taylor's strength. He is the hero of this game, and his determination and skill are unmatched. The final battle of Act 2 begins. Ed confronts Shenny at the back door. She draws her sword immediately and dashes forward with a lightning-fast attack aimed at his leg. He uses his reflexes to dodge and then jams her sword with his foot, catching her hands before she can draw her knives. Sheni isn't finished. She shares a magical ability with her twin sister Kelly through their shared birth star, and she uses low-level telekinesis to hurl objects and blades at Ed while attempting to stab him simultaneously. Despite taking some hits, the wounds aren't deep. Her magic isn't refined enough for that. Ed pulls the blades out of himself and pins Sheni down, pressing his knee against her back to hold her. As she struggles, she begins crying and yelling about how she can't fail Alice, revealing a deep, fierce loyalty. Ed calmly tells her that Alice will lose, but Sheni shares Alice's backstory, how Alice raised orphans, saved lives including Sheni's own. Upstairs, Taylor and Clebius, with help from Alvera and Isla, close in on Alice. Taylor uses his powerful elemental attack, causing a massive explosion that shakes the entire floor. Seeing the explosion, Sheni screams in despair before going limp from shock and exhaustion. Ed, unmoved by the emotional history, stays focused on surviving the game. He drags the unconscious Sheni inside the hall and props her against the wall before leaving. He knows these side stories won't change the main plot, and his survival takes priority. He reaches Lortel's room. He takes in the neatly arranged books, luxurious wooden furniture, and careful decorations, impressed by how perfectly the room reflects her character. Without wasting time, he writes the message, attaches it to the pigeon, and sends it into the night sky. This gives them a crucial time advantage. Elite Kekken, currently in Sylvania, will need at least 3 days to return to the headquarters. Later that night, under a rain-soaked sky, Ed limps toward his hut. Battered, tired, covered in cuts and bruises, his plan worked. He successfully prevented the elite from reaching the hall with Jix and Janika's help. He created an escape route for Lortel. His quick thinking left the elite with no choice but to chase a decoy carriage. Everything fell into place. The storyline held. He reaches his hut, expecting Lortel to already be inside, and finds instead an unsettling sight. Lortel is walking toward him holding a knife, her expression dark and unreadable. Ed's body goes completely tense. His thoughts spiral. Is she the true mastermind? Has she been eliminating people one by one and he's next? He can't move. Then Lortel reaches him and tears a piece of her own clothing to bandage his wounds. His fear evaporates, replaced by relief and confusion. She looks up at him with soft eyes and guides him into the hut, where she's already prepared a warm fire. She asks if they should warm up first. Her cheeks are faintly flushed. They sit together by the fire. The warmth helps Ed dry off and recover. Lortel mentions the carriage driver who promised to draw attention away from her by diverting the elite's guards, even at the risk of his own life. Ed wonders how she gained such devotion. Then he remembers this is Lortel Ketchum. He decides not to ask. After a pause, she thanks him for his help and reminds him that she now owes him a significant favor. She teases him for being dull. He replies that all he wants is the 20 gold coins as promised when the time comes. They sit quietly for a while before Lortel breaks the silence with a question about him and Janica. She asks, her voice carrying a hint of something she doesn't fully name, whether the two of them are close. Ed speaks highly of Janica. Kind. Dependable. Lortel listens quietly, her expression softening but carrying a shadow of something sadder. She adds her own compliments about Janica in a glum tone. Ed notices something behind the way she speaks and asks what she wants to say. Lortel takes a deep breath and sighs lightly. With a faint smile, she says she's not like Janica. Not caring, not always thinking of others first. At the same time, across the hall, Jix and Janica are holding their own against the Golden King's guards. But things turn when the elite receives a report that Lortel has escaped. Without wasting time, he abandons the fight and gives chase. Things aren't going well for Jix. He's struggling against the guards and clearly outmatched. Then Janica, who had been nervous, activates her spirit magic aura. A powerful tornado forms in the hall, sending guards in all directions as her spirits unleash their full strength. Jix panics and yells for her to stop, worried about the destruction and casualties. Janica pauses and turns to him with an unsettling, almost eerie smile. Her eyes gleam with a strange intensity as she says calmly that she's not mad at all. The next day at Ed's hut, he's busy washing his ruined academy uniform. He skipped classes after the long and exhausting night. Jix arrives with a spare uniform and shares what happened after everything settled. Willen has taken all the blame for the destruction of Office Hall. Chief Maid Alice was captured but hasn't said a word. Lortel has safely disappeared, and there's no news yet from Elite Ketchum. Ed allows himself to feel relieved. His plan worked. Now all he has to do is wait for the carrier pigeon to bring good news. He stretches his sore muscles and keeps moving. Later, he notices something new. His stats have improved, and he's reached the intermediate craftsman rank. The upgrade unlocks advanced crafting skills. Excited, he decides to learn Spirit Formula Infusion, a skill combining spirit sorcery with magic engineering. With this ability, he can form contracts with spirits and create powerful weapons, magical artifacts, and useful tools. He starts planning how to use these new capabilities for the challenges ahead. That afternoon, Janica visits with a cheerful smile. Ed is exercising outside when she arrives. She explains she felt tired and needed fresh air, so she came to the woods. Ed asks if she was hurt because of him. She shakes her head, smiles, and says she's fine. Then, with a slight frown, she asks if Lortel is okay. Ed tells her Lortel is resting inside the hut. Janica immediately feels a small flicker of jealousy, though she hides it carefully. Inside, Lortel leans back, relieved that the chaos of the office hall incident is finally behind her. But her work isn't finished. She still needs to persuade Alice to help lay the groundwork for negotiating the purchase of the sage's sealed grimoire. For now, she waits anxiously for a reply from the elite merchant headquarters. While waiting, she notices something she hasn't noticed before: how safe she feels here. How comfortable. Ed's unconditional kindness and trust make her heart race, and for the first time, she feels something more precious than gold. Blushing, she realizes she doesn't want to lose Ed to Janica, whose life is already full of family and friends. Lortel quietly resolves to win him over, even if it means competing with Janica. Spending 3 days with Ed only deepens these feelings. She starts to develop a quiet fixation, imagining showering him with gold if that's what it takes. Then she decides a different approach might work better. Something more natural. She'll show him sympathy and kindness. She even considers helping with his tuition to subtly gain his favor. Her heart races with a new kind of determination. For the first time in her life, she's discovered something worth more than wealth, and she's ready to fight for it no matter what. Fantasizing about Ed makes Lortel feel embarrassed and awkward. She's never had a boyfriend before. Then Sleepy Lucy barges in and claims her spot by the window. Ed immediately intervenes. He drags Lucy outside and sets her up in the small tent he built specifically for situations like this. He apologizes to Lortel and asks if he disturbed her. Lortel feels unsettled by Lucy's presence, seeing her as another rival and labeling her mentally as a natural disaster. On the second morning, Lortel wakes early hoping to have some time alone with Ed. She finds Janica already there, as usual. She sighs and turns back, noticing Lucy still asleep in the hut. Meanwhile, Ed works on crafting homemade bricks, adds another achievement to his stats, and learns the stonemasonry skill. Using it, he builds a brick fireplace inside the hut. Later, he grills beef jerky for everyone and they all eat together. Lortel mentions that since nothing significant happened that morning, everything is going according to plan. Ed thanks her but warns the group not to let their guard down. Feeling a little competitive with Janica, Lortel offers to compensate Ed with supplies and goods instead of the 20 gold coins. Ed appreciates the offer and asks if she has any construction materials or spare magic engineering equipment. She promises to check. Ed turns to Janica and asks a favor: teach him some basic spirit magic and how to make a spirit connection. Overjoyed that Ed is asking for her help specifically, Janica eagerly agrees. She demonstrates using a spirit bird, explaining how to focus and initiate a connection. Then the spirit bird unexpectedly speaks up, scolding Janica for giving incorrect advice. It also reveals that during their last spirit gathering, Janica received tips from her spirit friends on how to use Ed's cabin construction as an excuse to get closer to him. Janica immediately and desperately dispels the bird, sweating as she asks whether Ed heard anything. Lortel, seizing the moment, jumps in and mentions her leftover food stock at the headquarters, which she eagerly offers to sell to Ed at a discount. Ed negotiates, asking her to fold the stock into their agreed 20 gold coin deal. Lortel playfully suggests just giving it all for free, which annoys Janica further and sparks a light-hearted but clearly competitive debate between the two women. Both are unmistakably trying to get Ed's attention. Ed sits eating his beef jerky with quiet amusement, He realizes he can now learn both spirit magic and magic engineering with the help of Janica and Lortel simultaneously. A new figure appears at the hut. It's Bella, the new chief maid of Office Hall. She apologizes for the sudden visit and says she brings an important message from the former chief maid Alice. Hearing this, Lortel's expression shifts to worry. The atmosphere grows tense with quiet suspense. Before Bella's visit, Clara, one of Janica's friends, stops by Office Hall to see her. Clara gossips with Bella, revealing a top-secret piece of news but warning her not to react or let it slip. She leans in and whispers that her friend Janica is in love with Ed Rothstaylor. Bella feels conflicted, struggling not to show surprise while maintaining her composure. The two chat about Ed, who has a troublemaker reputation but seems to be improving lately. Clara admits she supports her friend but can't help noticing that Janica keeps bringing up Lortel's name. She says she doesn't understand either of them. Relationships, she concludes, are all about balance, and Janica is too naive for this particular game. She complains that Ed is acting oblivious, completely ignoring Janica's obvious hints, and pleads with Bella to do something. Bella, trying to calm her, suggests that Ed might be too focused on his own problems to think about romance right now, that it might just be his luck, or lack of it, when it comes to these things. Clara is left unsettled and slightly disturbed by the idea. At Ed's hut, Bella grows visibly annoyed seeing Lucy, Lortel, and Janica all gathered in the same place. She feels a headache coming on. When Lortel asks why she's there, Bella informs her of the important message from Alice. That evening, Bella decides to take both Sleepy Lucy and Janica with her when she leaves, which leaves Ed frustrated. He's uneasy about Lortel's location being exposed to someone connected to Office Hall, especially with Lortel in hiding. To avoid further risks, Lortel chooses to go with Bella, who offers to take her somewhere safe. Before leaving, Lortel gives Ed a repaired uniform as a thank you for everything he's done. Ed expresses genuine gratitude and notes it'll make a decent second set for the academy. Then a pigeon arrives carrying good news, a letter announcing a victory over the elite in business sales, signaling his downfall at the Merchant Association headquarters. Ed exhales with relief. He can finally return to school as normal. Lortel reads the letter and comments that her father must now be making his last stand and won't have time to chase her in Sylvania, ensuring her safety for the immediate future. She warns Ed not to underestimate her father, who may still have tricks remaining, but she expresses confidence in her allies at headquarters and believes she can become the next Merchant Association chairman. Her main concern now shifts to Alice. When Ed asks if Alice might expose her role as the mastermind behind the Office Hall incident, Lortel dismisses the worry. Alice will side with whoever wins. In Alice's letter, she detailed the orphanages she sponsors and urged Lortel to support them financially for the next year. Lortel shares Alice's backstory. Years of relentless work had destroyed her health, but the academy ignored her struggles. Unable to manage her responsibilities, including the orphanage, Alice gambled on the incident, switched sides for money and support. Though her actions were a betrayal, Lortel acknowledges the desperation behind them. After reading the full letter, Lortel concludes that Alice is backing her now because she sees Lortel's victory as inevitable. In the cutthroat world of merchants, sympathy is rare, and Alice understands this well. Lortel agrees to keep Alice on her side, but her trust in her will never be the same. As she prepares to leave, Lortel reminds Ed to stop by the Merchant Association branch to finalize their contract for supply deliveries. Before departing, Ed hands her a fire torch to guide her way. She pauses, looking at him thoughtfully. When he asks why she's still standing there, she mentions that he's tall. She admits she often makes risky moves to win. Then she steps closer to him, reaches up, and adjusts his uniform tie. She tells him he looks handsome in the new set. Then she grabs his tie, pulls him down, and kisses him. Still smiling, she teases that she can taste the raspberries they ate, claims she can feel them again through the kiss. She chuckles, clearly enjoying the moment, while Ed goes quiet and firmly warns her to stay within her limits. Unbothered, she mocks his boring reaction and adds one final teasing remark. "Next time you should try pulling me closer. I need practice pretending to push you away." She takes the torch from him and sets off. Then, once she's a certain distance away, she breaks into a run and disappears into the forest. Ed stands there, completely and utterly embarrassed by her boldness. No matter how carefully he tries to avoid getting swept up in the main events of this game, things always spiral beyond his control. He sits down beside his campfire that night, gazing at the stars through the trees, listening to crickets. He feels uneasy. The storyline is deviating. He can't shake the discomfort of being pulled further and further from the sidelines and toward the center of everything. His original plan was simple: observe, step in only when necessary, keep the scenario on track, survive, graduate, nothing more. Now that plan feels like an endless, reckless challenge. Summer has quietly faded into fall. Ed stares at the stars and wonders what the game will throw at him next. The next day at the lake, Janica gathers with her spirit friends to discuss her growing concerns about Lortel and how to handle her. The spirits inform her about what happened between Ed and Lortel, and it immediately infuriates her. The spirit labels Lortel an intimidating, foxy redhead. Janica anxiously asks how Ed reacted. She exhales with relief when she learns he responded coldly and showed no emotion. But her relief is short-lived. Spirit Tarkin warns her that Lortel's persistence will only intensify if Janica doesn't act quickly to secure Ed's attention. Amid a flood of ridiculous and cringeworthy suggestions from Tarkin, the other spirits drag him away. Spirit Nilda offers a more sensible idea: create a memorable and thrilling experience with Ed to make him think about her. After some thought, Janica decides that sharing a meal might be a good place to start. That evening, Ed prepares a new recipe and lets Lucy taste it first. She recoils in disgust and declares it awful. Ed listens to her criticism without reacting, calmly notes down his mistakes, and decides to delay perfecting his cooking skills until he receives a wider variety of ingredients from the stock deliveries. Despite the setback, he advances to the intermediate level in craftsmanship. He reflects on how his core stats directly affect his practical abilities and resolves to balance all of them more efficiently. Between attending classes, honing survival skills, and monitoring the progression of the game scenario, he has almost no time for personal development. He observes that Taylor's combat abilities are steadily improving. Isla continues to support Taylor. Princess Fenya appears to be on track. He knows the pivotal event in the storyline. Fenya's clash with Lortel is approaching. He's also aware that another key character, Clarice, won't enroll until next year, so he doesn't need to worry about her yet. While the elite's early dismissal creates some uncertainty around Lortel, Ed is confident it won't stop her from pursuing the sage's sealed grimoire. As the academy day ends, Ed steps outside and looks back at the main building. He realizes it's time to start monitoring the faculty building closely. The final boss of Act 2 is about to emerge. Meanwhile, in a quiet room within the academy, someone receives a letter revealing the mastermind behind the office hall incident. That person is Professor Glass. Professor Glass stands in his quiet office while his assistant Claire Elfin hovers nearby, trying to impress him. She praises his sharp thinking for suspecting that someone was behind the incident. Glass, a no-nonsense figure, ignores her attempts at charm entirely. He removes his glasses, exudes a dark and intimidating aura, and orders her to find the divine science thesis he asked for earlier. Startled by his tone, Claire rushes out immediately. At the office hall of the faculty building, Claire collects all the materials about the incident from Annis. Relieved, she starts reviewing the files of the students involved. Three catch her attention among all the names: Ed Rothstaylor, Jix, and Janica. While most of the case seems straightforward, something about Ed's file makes her feel uneasy. His reputation, combined with some missing pieces, makes her curious. That evening, Ed visits the Sylvania Merchant Association branch to collect the supplies he ordered under his contract with Lortel. Lortel, clearly enjoying having him there, teasingly apologizes for forgetting the contract details. Using it as a transparent excuse to make him come by again, she prepares tea and snacks, invites him to sit, and tells him to pick up his magic equipment at the counter when he leaves. Trying to keep his attention, she shows off her fancy dress and asks how she looks for an important meeting. Ed, completely uninterested, asks what kind of meeting it is. Lortel smiles, quietly amused by how little he notices her flirting. The conversation shifts to Ed's cabin. She suggests he might need furniture. He explains her company's products are too expensive. She agrees she can't give items away freely, merchant ethics, then casually uses her magic to break a chair's leg, declares it damaged and destined for the trash tomorrow, and hints that someone with crafting skills could fix it. Ed thanks her for the broken chair, maintaining his calm and serious expression without missing a beat. Lortel, entertained by how little emotion he shows, moves closer. Sitting on the nearby table, she teasingly tells him she's made her move and asks if he doesn't see her as a woman. She admits openly that she isn't helping him out of kindness. She has her reasons. She tells him she has no plans to let him ignore her. Ed calmly responds that he's not looking for anything from her and has no interest in battles he already knows he can't win. Lortel, completely unfazed, smiles and warns him that one day it won't just be her struggling to hold back feelings for him. Her smile is the same as always, calm, composed, giving nothing away. Ed notices she never shows her true hand, whether she's winning or in trouble. It's part of her nature as a merchant. Keep your cards close, never let emotions give you away. During recess at the academy, Janica excitedly teaches Ed how to connect with a spirit. She explains that he should focus his magic to attempt a bond and summons a small fire spirit named Mug. Mug appears serious and immediately promises to serve Ed well, which surprises him. Ed remembers, before he came to this world, when he played the game as Ed Rothstaylor, he once formed a bond with a spirit duck. They used to joke around together. In the end, he let it go. Looking at Mug now, though, he feels this will be different. Curious about Mug's formal, almost rigid manner, Ed asks Janica about it. She laughs and explains that Mug is a good spirit with excellent energy efficiency and was carefully selected by the high-ranked spirit Tarkin. Since Ed wanted a strong spirit, she chose the best candidate available. After a rigorous selection process, Mug is officially handed over to Ed, and they form their first spirit connection. Ed holds Mug and is immediately struck by how warm the little spirit is, almost like a portable heater. He checks its abilities and stats. Janica tells him happily that Mug is an excellent survival tool because he doesn't need wood to generate heat. Seeing Ed genuinely pleased, Janica smiles even though he still looks tired. Before leaving, she reminds him to let her know if he needs more help. She offers to teach him further about spirit connections and suggests he'll learn faster if he spends more time with her. Then, as she's mid-sentence, she suddenly changes tone and expression. She claims to be very busy and says many others are waiting for her lessons, that teaching him magic all the time might be a bit too much for her. She's remembering her spirits and Clara's advice. Keep things cool with Ed, don't get too close too fast. She backs off, smiling awkwardly. Ed, feeling guilty for taking advantage of her kindness, offers to pay her for her help. Janica gets upset immediately. She insists she's helping him out of friendship, not for payment. She calls his offer cold and reminds him that they're close friends and such things shouldn't come between them. Ed, confused, points out that she was the one who brought up compensation first. Realizing she contradicted herself, Janica gets flustered and embarrassed. To recover, she admits that Clara told her she's too generous and needs to learn to say no sometimes. Ed appreciates her honesty and agrees that Clara is right. Janica waves goodbye after some time, promising to meet at combat training and to bring a special accessory next time. She leaves Mug the spirit with Ed, and he waves back. With his new crafting skills from Lortel's magic engineering guidance and the low-ranked spirit from Janica, Ed finally feels like he has a proper setup. He can learn real crafting skills now. He can keep his fireplace lit at all times. Life in the forest is becoming, for the first time, genuinely comfortable. Looking out his window at the night sky, he suddenly remembers he forgot to check the traps and heads out. Deep in the forest, Claire Elfin is investigating Ed, convinced he was the mastermind behind the office hall incident. With everything she knows, his dissoundment, his lack of connections to the hall, he stands out clearly from the other students and teachers. Reports place him in the woods regularly. That's what led her here. Moving carefully through the forest, she suddenly hears footsteps and hides. What she sees is terrifying. A man carrying Lucy over his shoulder while dragging a dead deer behind him. He doesn't use magic. He relies entirely on raw physical skill. Claire realizes with shock that this isn't Principal Ole. It's Ed Rothstaylor. Her suspicions are confirmed. She feels proud of her detective instincts. Quietly, she follows him through the forest and discovers the hidden hut. Watching from the trees, she sees Ed throw Lucy into a small tent he set up for her and place the deer near the fireplace. Then he heads inside, planning to sleep early. Claire cautiously sneaks closer, determined to rescue Lucy. The moment she reaches the tent, Lucy immediately casts a warning spell, startling her and demanding to know who she is. Claire, sweating nervously, introduces herself. Lucy, completely uninterested, returns to her tent and starts eating beef jerky. She then eyes Claire with vague suspicion before casually flying away and disappearing into the darkness. Claire is left standing there completely baffled. She rushes back to the office and presents her gathered evidence to Professor Glast. She argues that Ed is guilty, emphasizes how suspicious his dissoundment is, and insists he's dangerous. She recounts how he easily overpowered Lucy in the forest and had her imprisoned in his tent. Glass barely remembers who Ed is. He dismisses her claims, noting that Lucy often wanders and sleeps in the woods. Nothing unusual. Claire takes a different approach. She confidently reveals she used magic to record the memories from the first floor of Office Hall. Glass raises an eyebrow and asks if she had permission. Flustered, she scrambles to cover it up, claiming she recovered the memories on her own authority. Unimpressed, Glass sternly orders her to write a formal apology and explanation letter. Despite this, Claire insists he look at the memory she brought. It clearly shows Ed sitting on the stairs in a perfect mastermind pose and then stopping Taylor and his group from going upstairs. Deeply suspicious. Glass asks if she has stronger evidence. She mentions the forest incident with Lucy. He stares at her in silence and simply tells her again to submit the letter. Sighing in frustration, Claire leaves his office feeling exhausted. Glass, now alone, finally looks at the memory globe seriously. He watches Ed blocking Taylor and Alvera and finds himself intrigued. He can't quite believe that someone as apparently ordinary as Ed could hold off the sword-sink Taylor and the natural-born alchemist Alvera simultaneously. The memory replays. Ed's actions and combat techniques flash through it again. For the first time, Glass' expression changes. He realizes Ed might not be ordinary at all. The glow has caught his full attention. Back in the forest, Ed successfully crafts an impressive weapon using both magic engineering and spirit magic, a ceremonial dagger explosion. He admires it, recognizing it as the best weapon he's produced since he started living independently in this world. Feeling satisfied, he examines it closely. Mug, seeing Ed pleased, advises him to use the weapon frequently to improve its efficiency. Then Mug begins singing a song in Ed's honor. Ed, who has been observing Mug's flattery and overly formal behavior since they met, suddenly picks him up and shakes him, demanding to know the real reason behind it all. Mug stammers. Ed presses further, asking if Janica promised him something in return for good behavior. Mug hesitates, but Ed insists he be honest. They're bonded through a spirit connection, and he deserves the truth. Feeling the pressure, Mug finally breaks down crying and confesses. He deeply respects Ed, but he's also ashamed of his own low ambitions. The real reason he agreed to the contract was to take advantage of the refined magic around Janica, which allows him to grow at twice the normal rate of a low-ranked spirit. Ed sighs and asks if there's anything else Mug has been hiding. Mug, feeling guilty, admits he also heard rumors about Ed's strict and authoritarian reputation at the academy. Fearing Ed's temper, he's been staying on his good side through constant flattery. After hearing the full confession, Ed calmly tells him he understands his situation and that wanting to grow stronger is only natural. They head back to the hut together, with Mug perched comfortably on Ed's shoulder, chatting along the way. Back at the hut, Ed chops wood for the fireplace. His stamina has improved significantly and his storage is full of meat and vegetables. He no longer has to sleep hungry. With enough supplies, he can reduce sleep time and push harder on his studies, absorbing information faster. The effort exhausts him eventually, and he falls asleep outside. He wakes up to find Janica standing beside him, looking worried. She advises him to take better care of his health. He decides to focus more on himself, and then notices 3 letters waiting for him. The first is from the academy. The second is from the merchantry. But it's the third letter that grabs his complete and undivided attention. He understands immediately. This letter will determine the future direction of the game's storyline. In the original game, the main event of Act 2 was a negotiation over the Sage's sealed grimoire, a tug-of-war between the Academy's Student Association and the merchantry. But the situation has changed with the fall of the elite. The original client who wanted to buy the grimoire was connected to the Rothstaylor family. Now, with the plot shifted into a 3-way conflict, Crepin Rothstaylor, the family head, has gotten personally involved. He wants the grimoire to advance his research on eternal life. Crepin was originally supposed to be a major boss in Act 4. His appearance in Act 2 makes everything dramatically more difficult. No player would be strong enough to defeat him at this stage of the story. Ed knows exactly how dangerous Crepin is and wants to prevent his involvement at all costs. To keep the storyline intact and avoid chaos he cannot control. If Crepin succeeds in buying the grimoire, completing the game becomes impossible, even with all the knowledge Ed carries. The third letter contains critical information about Crepin's actions and suspicions regarding the grimoire. The sender remains unknown, another layer of mystery. During recess at the academy, Princess Fania enjoys her tea in the garden. Captain Claire approaches and reports that he delivered Ed's letters as she instructed. She thanks him. For Fania, the sage's sealed grimoire is the soul of the academy. Selling it for money would be a disgrace. Principal Oil has already asked for her help, informing her of the academy's financial trouble and requesting her support. But what concerns Fania more is Rothstaylor's unexpected interference in the grimoire's sale. Captain Claire suggests that Ed may have reported the sale to his family, hoping to be accepted back. Before the conversation goes further, Lortel arrives and interrupts Claire with her usual sharp timing. She politely asks the princess for permission to join the tea session. Fania finds the visit surprising. She always assumed Lortel disliked her. But Lortel clears up the misunderstanding with a smile and offers inside information as a gesture of goodwill. Lortel reveals that it was not Ed but Elite Kelton, her adoptive father, who involved the Rothstaylor family in the grimoire business. To Fania's surprise, Lortel adds that Rothstaylor was the one who originally requested the grimoire. With Kelton's influence weakening at the merchant headquarters, he's still determined to complete the purchase using Crepin's support. The elite merchantry has invested too much effort into the deal to walk away. This makes Fania realize the grimoire sale might be an attempt to forge a business alliance between the two families, but she wonders why they're now competing for it rather than cooperating. Lortel smiles and explains that since she now controls the merchantry, she wants to save the grimoire by purchasing it herself. She assures Fania she has no intention of selling it to the Rothstaylor family. Surprised by Lortel's honesty, Fania asks why she's sharing such internal matters. Lortel, still smiling, calls Fania an ally in this situation. If Fania helps her obtain the grimoire, it will strengthen Lortel's position in the merchantry, while Fania keeps the Rothstaylor family in check. A clear win for both sides. Lortel continues, explaining her reason for speaking in Ed's defense. Ed has already been disowned by his family, and it would be deeply unfair to suspect him of collaborating with them. Fania listens carefully, observing how Lortel speaks and chooses her words. She begins to sense that Lortel might be hiding something. She's never seen Lortel show this much concern for any specific person before. To test her, Fania casually mentions Ed and suggests she might interrogate him personally, use her authority to bring him to their side, and if he refuses, exploit him. Hearing this, Lortel, who had been holding her teacup perfectly still, suddenly starts shaking. She carefully puts the cup down, then bursts into laughter, realizing that even the princess isn't above exploiting others for personal goals. Captain Claire, agitated by Lortel's mocking attitude, questions how she dares disrespect the princess. Before he can act, Fania calmly orders him to stand down. Lortel stands gracefully and reassures Fania they are allies. She gives her one final piece of advice: never underestimate Ed Rothstaylor. Whoever does, she warns, will regret it. As Lortel walks away, Fania falls deep into thought. She can't figure out the truth. Is Ed the one behind Rothstaylor's sudden involvement? Or is it Lortel, who never bows even to a princess and always seems to be playing 5 moves ahead? Watching Lortel leave, Fania realizes she's not sure what to do next. For the first time, she feels genuinely uncertain. At the merchantry branch, Lortel spots Ed with Janica and immediately feels a flicker of jealousy. Janica notices Lortel's gaze and greets her with a teasing smile. Lortel, who prepared only 2 cups of rosemary tea, one for herself and one for Ed, now finds herself reluctantly offering Janica a glass of cold water. Janica smirks and teases her for not having extra tea ready for guests. Lortel, keeping her cool, fires back that as a merchant she can't waste merchandise on unexpected visitors. Ed, visibly tired and drained, quietly takes the cold water instead and passes his tea to Janica. This makes Janica smile while Lortel watches, feeling slightly annoyed as the teasing continues. Lortel then presents the magic engineering equipment she promised Ed. As she unveils the tools, Janica immediately yells in protest, accusing Lortel of breaking merchant ethics by offering brand new equipment for free, suspecting her of trying to win Ed over with expensive gifts. Lortel calmly points out minor defects in the items, assuring Janica they aren't brand new. Janica, unconvinced, insists Lortel did it on purpose. Lortel laughs, fueling Janica's irritation further. Ed looks at the equipment and hesitates. He tells Lortel he can't accept more free items. This is already the 4th time she's offered something. She waves off his concern and says he's her regular customer, which means contract renewals are standard and there's no issue. Janica, sensing Lortel's tactics, suggests Ed quickly finish his payments and cut ties with her before he ends up too deep in debt. Lortel tells Janica to mind her own business. A playful but clearly competitive argument erupts between the two women, both unmistakably vying for Ed's attention. As they continue, Ed suddenly feels a strange sensation overtake him, a light, floating feeling as though he's drifting in water. He recognizes it from experience. It's what happens when he's pushed himself too far. His mind, occupied with the grimoire problem and building a better mattress, can't keep up with the exhaustion any longer. He collapses to the floor. Lortel and Janica immediately rush to his side. At Sylvania Academy, Princess Fenia reflects on Ed's composed and precise demeanor. The calm she saw when he was fishing at his camp, the steady presence during the Glaskin incident, the reputation students give him as someone who just quietly focuses on his studies. She begins to question whether her assumptions about him were wrong. She decides she needs to confirm it one final time. She is the one who sends Ed the third letter, an invitation to visit her at the royal residence, marked as highly secret. She reviews her schedule for the next day and asks Captain Claire whether Ed's visit is confirmed. Claire delivers unexpected news. Ed has collapsed from overwork. This surprises Fenia. In the game, when a character accumulates exhaustion status, they're typically given several rest days to recover. Now, despite everything pressing down on the storyline, Ed is forced to rest. When Ed wakes up in his hut, his body is incredibly heavy and a strange warmth spreads through his lower belly. He looks down. Lucy is sleeping on top of him, muttering in her sleep. Seeing how utterly peaceful she looks, he wonders briefly, not for the first time, whether she's entirely human. Given his exhaustion, he lacks the strength to move her. He notices new blankets and a new mattress around him and assumes the merchantry must have brought him here to recover. Lucy wakes up and immediately starts talking about how hungry she is. Upon noticing Ed is awake, she offers him mana treatment to restore his distorted mana flow. She explains she's been performing this repeatedly while he's been in his weakened state. Once she finishes, she drifts back to sleep right next to him. Before falling asleep, she gives Ed a piece of advice. Stop getting sick, because it's a hassle for her. She warns that being weak is dangerous. Ed knows her grandfather died bedridden from illness, much like he is now. He thanks her sincerely for the treatment and her concern. Then Jix walks in without knocking, checking that the stove is working properly to keep the place warm. Seeing Jix walk in so casually, Lucy immediately flies off to another location, apparently embarrassed. Now fully awake, Ed contemplates how strange it is that despite actively trying to live independently, he keeps attracting so many people. He asks Jix why he's here. Jix replies that he's been checking in while the others are out. He casually mentions that it's the autumn season and offers Ed a bowl of soup. Ed asks if there's any news from the academy. Jix shares updates. Taylor and Clebius handled the academy exploration problem well, and other incidents like the Demon of the Sewers Act seem to be under control according to the original storyline. This reassures Ed that nothing critical has shifted. However, the most important event, the struggle over the sage's sealed grimoire, is still looming. He urgently asks how long he's been unconscious. Jix tells him it's been 10 days. Ed's stomach drops. The main event has already started. Adding to his alarm, Jix informs him that Lortel had no choice but to leave for an important negotiation in his absence. Ed immediately jumps up and insists Jix help him send a message to Lortel right away. Meanwhile, at Sylvania Academy, the bidding war over the sage's sealed grimoire has officially begun. The major players are gathered: Princess Fenia Cole, representing the Student Association; Lortel, representing the elite merchantry; and an unexpected third party, stepping into the hall with an imposing, almost suffocating presence, the patriarch of the Rothstaylor family, Crepin Rothstaylor himself. At the luncheon, all the key players take stock of each other before the bidding war begins. Crepin greets Princess Fenia warmly, expresses delight at seeing her in good health, and personally apologizes for the actions of his foolish family member, Ed Rothstaylor, assuring her that Ed's past behavior in no way reflects the values of the Rothstaylor family. Fenia responds politely, but she watches him carefully. Crepin appears noble, compassionate, and wise. His attendants show him unwavering reverence in every gesture. Through her judgment ability, she sees him clearly for what he is, an evil man. Crepin turns to Lortel and asks if she represents the elite merchantry. Lortel stands and bows respectfully, introduces herself as Lortel Ketchalan and expresses honor at being in his presence. As they converse, Crepin tests her knowledge and motives with precisely chosen words. Lortel responds strategically, revealing only what benefits her, asserting that her interest lies solely in profit and maintaining a composed, confident front. The bidding process begins. Each participant submits a written offer, knowing the highest bid wins the sage's sealed grimoire. The Academy wants to keep its financial problems confidential, so they put Vice Principal Rachel in charge of the auction with Princess Phinia as the only royal observer. The auction takes place quietly inside the Academy building. Phinia watches every movement, knowing the grimoire is more than an expensive item. It has profound magical value for research. She understands that in an auction with no price ceiling, knowing the opposing bidder's highest offer is the key to winning. Lortel and Crepin sit in silence, observing each other with carefully controlled expressions, each weighing their strategies before submitting. Vice Principal Rachel collects the bids and thanks both parties for their participation. As Rachel prepares to announce the winner, Phinia quickly considers the numbers. She guesses that Lortel, who always thinks in terms of profit and market trends, probably bid around 8,100 coins, the highest price a similar book has previously sold for. Going higher would be risky since reselling at a profit would become difficult. Still, if Crepin bid just slightly above Lortel's estimated maximum of around 8,000 coins, he'd win. Rachel stands and begins announcing the bids. When she reveals Crepin Rothstaylor's offer, as expected, he offered 8,500 flying gold coins. Phinia isn't surprised. He didn't travel to the Academy to turn a profit from book trading. When Rachel announces Lortel's bid, the entire room goes still. Lortel bid 9,400 gold coins, far exceeding all expectations. The grimoire is hers. Crepin's face darkens with frustration. Without a word, he leaves the building with his attendants, his bitter expression telling the full story. Lortel calmly moves to a private room to complete the transaction, leaving Phinia staring after her in disbelief. Phinia struggles to understand. Lortel claims she only cares about profit. So why would she spend that much just to secure the grimoire? Phinia recalls their tea conversation. Lortel's suggestion that they become allies. It becomes clear. Lortel's true intention was to prevent the grimoire from falling into Crepin's hands, but Phinia remains skeptical. She can't believe Lortel would act out of a pure sense of justice. There must be someone behind her, someone who influenced her to stop Crepin Rothstaylor. The princess's suspicion grows as she pieces it together. She recalls what Lortel said about Ed's ties to the Rothstaylor family, about how he's been fighting against his family's darkness. Fighting so hard he collapsed from overwork. Realization washes over her like cold water. Overwhelmed with guilt, Phinia panics, questioning how she could have driven someone like that toward ruin by pushing for his disarmament in the first place. Regret floods through her. For Ed, however, Phinia's misunderstanding may have been a hidden blessing. Living in the forest forced him to sharpen skills and harden himself into someone far more capable than the Academy alone could have made him. Meanwhile, in her quarters at the elite merchantry, Lortel admires the sage's sealed grimoire she just acquired. She calculates the potential profit if she were to sell it. The difference would only be 900 gold coins. But deep down she knows she didn't do it for profit. She did it for Ed, following his request without a moment's hesitation. Determined to win him over by any means, she sees the grimoire as an opportunity, something she can leverage to ask him for anything in return. She lies on her bed, indulging in the thought of Ed being in her debt. Considering the 900 coins a small and entirely worthwhile investment, she smiles to herself, imagining him within her grasp, believing she's finally found a way to make him hers. At the campsite, Ed feels genuine relief hearing that Lortel won the grimoire. Jix sits nearby laughing, telling him he should have seen Lortel's face when Ella delivered the news. Ed knows Lortel may have used her charm to get what she wanted. She often relies on it, but he worries whether charm alone will be enough this time. Even though she won, Ed isn't fully at ease. He suspects Crepin Rothstaylor must have had some secret information that allowed him to enter the auction. Things might not be over yet. Crepin won't give up easily. Then Janica arrives at the hut, panting and asking about his health. She looks worried and apologizes for any trouble she might have caused with the rumors about him. Ed laughs and tells her it's okay. He already heard everything from Jix. Hearing this, Janica gets furious at Jix for telling Ed about how she ran around the academy crying over him, inadvertently starting rumors about her being heartbroken. Frustrated, she orders her spirit bear to take Jix away. As Jix gets dragged off, she waves goodbye. From Janika's hair, Ed's spirit Mug suddenly appears, crying with guilt. Mug apologizes for not knowing Ed was pushing himself so hard that he collapsed. He begs for forgiveness and even offers to be punished. He tries to hug Ed but is afraid of affecting his mana, so he clings to Janika instead. Ed, seeing Mug making a scene, calmly settles him down. Jix returns after his brief encounter with the spirit bear and tells Ed that Mug isn't overreacting. He was unconscious for 10 full days. Ed immediately groans. His stock of meat and vegetables must be completely spoiled. He'll have to gather everything again. But this time, Jix and Janika offer to help. Seeing their determination, Ed feels genuinely grateful. He thinks back to when he first built his wooden shelter and slept alone in the forest with nobody around him. Now, with real friends stepping in without being asked, he realizes he isn't truly alone anymore. Janika watches him, noticing how tired he still looks. She remembers a recent conversation with Milda by the magical forest tree. Sitting together, Milda told her this is her perfect chance to grow closer to Ed before Lortel pulls another scheme. Milda, acting as an impromptu dating expert, advised Janika to start dressing like a countryside housewife to make a stronger impression. Janika tried on a worn, simple-looking outfit, feeling unsure. Milda encouraged her anyway. Then she gave Janika specific tips on how to make progress the next time they met. But as Janika hesitates, acting too innocent, unsure of how to move forward, Milda gets frustrated. She leans in and asks directly what Janika plans to do once she gets closer to Ed. Hearing Janika's uncertain response, Milda howls in frustration and scolds her for being too naive. She warns that if Janika doesn't act now, she might lose her chance forever. Ed is growing stronger every day and won't always be in situations where he needs support. Pressured by Milda's scolding, Janika finally comes up with a plan. She whispers it to Milda, who nods in approval. That night, after eating a nice stew Janika made for him, Ed gets up to rest. He's still tired despite all the help he's received from Jix and Janika. His main focus is recovery. He lies down on his bed. The door opens quietly. Janika appears in the doorway with a romantic pose and a soft voice, telling him he looks really tired. Ed watches her not leave and starts wondering if she's planning something. She walks into the room, looking at him with soft, warm eyes. She sits down beside him, trying to draw him in. She tells him softly that he needs to admit he's having a hard time, that exhaustion affects everyone, physically and mentally. She says she understands how difficult his schedule is and how much he's enduring quietly, more than anyone else realizes. Then Janika confesses something. She says that Ed has helped her the most simply by being quietly present when everyone else rushed to offer support. She wants him to acknowledge his struggles so that he can finally rest peacefully beside her. She wants to support him quietly the same way. Seeing how much she genuinely cares, Ed rests his head on the pillow. He finally admits out loud that he's really having a hard time. Just saying it brings an unexpected wave of relief. He drifts into a deep, peaceful sleep almost immediately. In the morning, he wakes up to find Janika sleeping beside him. What makes him happiest is that his fatigue is completely gone. He feels fully recovered, all because of Janika. Later that morning, Ed is surprised to find Lortel visiting. They walk to the river and sit together. She looks happy to see him feeling better, but almost immediately tries to gain his sympathy by mentioning her own health problems. Chronic fatigue, she says. At first, Ed assumes she's exaggerating. Then she tries to walk over to him and winces from joint pain. He realizes she might actually be unwell. She settles down beside him with visible effort. Concerned, Ed asks why she came all the way to the forest when she's both busy and not feeling well. Lortel brushes this off and says she has something important to tell him. She reveals that she's renaming the merchantry into a trading company, and she wants Ed to take a key role in it. She wants him to help manage assets, products, and external affairs. She's offering him the position of co-executive. She describes it as coming to the company every day, being just one wall apart. She also promises him a share of her personal assets. In her mind, she's imagining this as a step towards something almost like being together with him. Like they're almost married. As she continues talking, lost in her own daydream, Ed interrupts hesitantly and asks if she doesn't think this is a bit much to go this far for him. Lortel takes a deep breath, pulls up the hood of her cloak, and looks at him seriously. She tells Ed he doesn't understand anything. She explains what she suspects he's thinking, that something must be wrong with her, or that she can't make such an important decision based on the fleeting feelings of a young girl. Lortel acknowledges that Ed wants to keep things professional until the very end, but he doesn't realize what she's been through. After living a life where hundreds of gold coins come and go, after betrayal upon betrayal, she's come to understand one thing clearly: she needs someone she can truly trust, someone who will never betray her, even if all her wealth disappears one day. Most people have family or friends to lean on. She's seen great merchants rise and fall, fortunes vanish overnight. And through all of it, her greatest fear is that something might happen to her one day and leave her with no one to trust. Finally, with a deep and heartfelt expression, she asks Ed to stay beside her forever, no matter what happens. Ed looks at her in genuine surprise. Then she laughs and says she almost had him fooled. Ed yells at her for being too emotionally manipulative. Lortel, still laughing, admits she has a habit of touching people's hearts and making them waver. As they sit together in a moment of quiet, she takes a breath and says that her feelings aren't a lie after all. Ed tells her he plans to graduate from Sylvania Academy first. He won't leave before then. He tells her to consider the co-executive offer only after his graduation. Lortel stands up, smiling, and tells him she can wait for him to graduate. Then, with a playful smirk, she holds up the grimoire document. She reminds him he's in her debt, and warns him she'll use it as a free pass to win him over someday. She waves goodbye with the letter in hand, cheerfully tells him it was wonderful seeing him again, and walks away. As she goes, Ed sighs, feeling like he's made a mistake. He truly does owe her for the grimoire now. He feels stuck. Meanwhile, Lortel walks back feeling nervous about the risky move she just pulled. She had wanted to confidently declare that he belongs to her, but seeing his serious reaction completely threw off her plan. She even forgot to give him his change for the magic engineering products, and now feels awkward about seeing him again. She decides to quietly drop the change at his hut. She heads back. When she reaches his hut, she's shocked to find Janica stepping outside, just waking up. Both women freeze. They gasp at the sight of each other. Questions fly immediately. Tension rises. Anger and rivalry fill the air, marking the beginning of a new disaster. Not just for them, but for Ed as well. Both are determined to win him over, no matter what it takes. Ed, refreshed from a bath in the river, gets back to his daily routine. He cuts logs for the fireplace while Mug quietly warns him not to overexert himself. Taking the warnings seriously, he manages his stamina carefully and completes his tasks efficiently. Now that his food and firewood supplies are stocked again, thanks to Jix and Janica's help, he can finally shift his focus back to his health and studies. With a clear mind, he turns his attention to the 3 letters he received before collapsing. The first letter is from Lortel, warning him to stay alert since neither of them knows what the elite might do next. The second letter is from Finia, discussing Crepin's possible involvement in recent events. But it's the third letter that holds his full attention, a highly confidential message from an unexpected sender, Professor Glast, requesting a private meeting after the conference. Unfortunately, Ed couldn't meet Glast because he collapsed before he could respond. He's been in the dark about Glast's true intentions since then. Based on what he knows from the game, he already understands. Professor Glast is the final boss of Act 2, and the events of this act have already begun. In the game's story, Glast believes only a handful of extraordinarily talented individuals can change the world. He wants to bring back Sylvania, the greatest sage in history. To accomplish this, he has spent years studying effectual magic, which can alter the natural laws of the world. However, he needs the sage's sealed grimoire to complete his plan. Since the Academy sold it to Lortel due to financial pressure, Glast will steal it. He will then kidnap Taylor's friend Isla, who possesses a unique and rare magical ability. His plan is to place Sylvania's spirit inside her body and launch a new era. In the game, Taylor fights through obstacle after obstacle and defeats Glast to save Isla. In the end, Glast falls from the magic tower and says something important before he dies, something Ed can't quite remember. What Ed does know is that Act 2's final battle begins when Isla is kidnapped. He realizes he must be ready for what's coming. In a tense moment, Isla wakes up and finds herself locked inside a dark, damp dungeon, guarded by a terrifying demon from the underground waterway. Fear grips her as she realizes the horror of her situation. The eerie silence makes her heart pound, but she soon realizes she's not alone. Another voice echoes through the dungeon, blaming her for ending up in this mess. Tears well up in Isla's eyes as she yells at that person, calling them mean for blaming her right now, insisting she hates being trapped in this awful place. To her surprise, the person with her in the dungeon is none other than Ed Rothstaylor himself. In Act 2's final scene, Ed didn't plan on being kidnapped. To explain how he got there, he reflects on the past 3 days. While working on his magic engineering gadgets, Ed realizes that despite how hard he's pushed himself, his preparations still aren't enough for the final battle. He needs better materials and blueprints. Then an idea clicks. He recalls a key detail from the final battle. There's a secret laboratory that must be entered during the 3rd stage of the final act. It's full of valuable blueprints. Although Taylor is supposed to handle the middle boss battle inside the lab, Ed is far more interested in the contents. He decides to ask Janica for help. At the academy, Professor Glast announces that 2 new students, Adele from Class B and Isla from Class C, will be joining Class A. The academy needs to accommodate more talented students, and this decision comes directly from the top. Jix realizes that with these 2 additions, Class A will now have 5 members, a significant change after many years under Professor Glast's supervision. Even though Isla might not be the most powerful student, her unique expelled magic stats make her stand apart from everyone else. Curious, Jix asks Glast whether the class criteria are based strictly on talent. Glast responds firmly, warning Jix not to underestimate the effort of other students. He advises that the quickest way to ruin someone's life is to give them false confidence in vague talent and offer them inadequate support. The lesson is for everyone in the room, including Jix. Professor Glast is a man who believes in talent almost stubbornly. This belief has its roots in his daughter Miri. He had immense faith in her as a parent, even though she was, by the Academy's standards, only an average mage. Miri wanted to prove herself. She joined a monster hunting mission before she was ready. She didn't come back. Her death broke Glast in ways he never fully recovered from. After losing her, he became even more rigid in his views on proven talent and spent most of his remaining life at Sylvania Academy studying expelled magic. But what makes his research significant and dangerous is that he isn't doing it to improve magic. He's doing it to bring back Sylvania, the greatest mage of all time, the creator of magic itself. At the end of class, Professor Glast seems to be about to say something to Lortel, then stops and changes his mind. He tells her he'll speak to her separately tomorrow about the lesson. Lortel knows exactly what he wants to ask. He's concerned about the sage's sealed grimoire she's now purchased. She knows he wants to scold her, since the grimoire is critical to his expelled magic research, but she isn't worried. The passing ceremony and the official transfer of the grimoire to her are just around the corner. His talk will change nothing. At the academy, as Claire's class comes to an end, Ed gets ready, knowing that the sage's sealed grimoire connection ceremony is about to begin, marking the start of the final battle in Act 2. Ed's original plan is to closely follow Taylor as he fights through the stages, from Phase 1 to Phase 5, to rescue Isla. He plans to pick up any leftover items along the way, especially from Phase 3. These include Glocksai and Delheim's Hourglass, materials that are nearly impossible to obtain anywhere else and can only be crafted in the final stages of the scenario. Collecting them will give him a major advantage as the story moves forward. His plan is to quietly admire Taylor's progress through Phase 5, gather what he needs, and return to camp before becoming involved in the main story. To get Janica's help, Ed tells her they need to go to the underground waterway because he lost something there and wants to find it together. He expects Janica to dislike dark and narrow spaces. Instead, she immediately and enthusiastically agrees to help. He feels a small pang of guilt sensing her genuine concern for him, but he knows he needs her support for what's coming. Just as Ed is preparing to leave, Assistant Professor Claire arrives and informs him that Professor Glast wants to see him in his office. Ed is surprised and confused. He can't figure out why he's being summoned. He assumes it might be a follow-up to the earlier letter, since he was unconscious and couldn't respond at the time. Thinking Glast might want to discuss something important, Ed decides to go. Upon arriving, he's even more surprised to find Isla already there. She immediately takes a defensive stance, still wary of Ed after the office hall incident, specifically the arrow he fired at her. Ed is confused to see Isla standing safely in the office, instead of being kidnapped, as he expected for tomorrow's events. Puzzled about why he was called, Ed starts scanning Glast's desk and surroundings for any clues about changes to the upcoming storyline. He finds a report on Glast's desk written by Claire, detailing her observations and investigation of Ed regarding the office hall incident. At that moment, Ed realizes something alarming. Professor Glast knows about his abilities and actions. He may have already figured out what Ed did. As he's still processing this, the office door opens and Professor Glast walks in. Ed draws his dagger on instinct. Isla, startled by Ed's sudden reaction, screams and rushes toward the professor for safety. But Ed is not the villain here. Professor Glast is. Without hesitation, Glast uses his effectual magic to trap Isla in a time prison. Reacting immediately, Ed throws his dagger at Glast, while calling Mug to trigger an explosion. The professor effortlessly blocks the attack and even praises Ed's quick response and ability to read the research materials so quickly. Despite being impressed, Glast tells Ed that it will take more than that to understand his true motives. Taking cover, Ed asks why the professor is restraining him and even offers to stay quiet and not interfere, if Glast only needs Isla for his plans. Glast refuses to leave any potential threats unchecked. After witnessing Ed's combat skill and resourcefulness, he decides to eliminate him as a possible obstacle. Realizing that even if he escapes now, Glast will keep pursuing him and disrupt the original storyline, Ed contemplates his options. If he allows himself to be captured, there's a strong chance he'll be taken to the secret laboratory, the very place he needs to go. After weighing his choices, Ed surrenders deliberately. He allows Glast to kidnap him. Observing Ed, Glast remarks that Ed is a product of effort rather than talent. Despite his impressive combat abilities and survival instincts, Glast considers his approach fundamentally weak. Seeing him, Glast is reminded of his daughter and her struggles. As Ed is trapped in the time prison, Mug stealthily slips out of his pocket and escapes from the professor's office. The small spirit rushes toward Ed's hut, where Janica is preparing lunch. Somewhere, an old man writes his life story. He chronicles his travels across the southern continents and the magical truths he uncovered along the way. Much of his writing is dedicated to his late master Sylvania, one of the greatest mages who tragically died at a young age. In his heart, she remains eternally beautiful. Throughout his life, he's longed to break the natural laws of the world just to see her face once more. But he understands that what is lost cannot be regained. Instead, he chooses to pass on his knowledge, training a young apprentice to carry his teachings forward. On his deathbed, he places Sylvania's hat on his apprentice's head and hands over his life's work. In the final words of his book, he dedicates his legacy to his young apprentice, Lucy Marcel. In the game's story, that old man, Gloxe, accepts his approaching death with serenity, waiting for it with more sincerity than anyone. Lucy, his apprentice, has no choice but to let him go. Yet the grief of losing her beloved master, the man she calls grandfather, cuts deeply. Ed reflects on whether Lucy's pain will ever fully heal or if the scar will remain forever. The only small comfort Lucy takes is from the pouch of beef jerky she keeps from Ed's hut. As Lucy shakes her pouch and finds it empty, she climbs down from the hut's roof to refill it. But below she spots Janica standing there, deep purple aura activated, dark and angry, while Spirit Mug speaks to her with urgent news. Meanwhile, at Trix Hall, the Academy's main conference room, the Sage's sealed grimoire passing ceremony begins. Elite members of the Merchantry and Academy faculty gather as Lortel stands ready to receive the grimoire from Principal Owl in front of the assembled audience. As she looks at Owl, she thinks about Crepin Rothstaylor, same age, but strikingly different in every way. After the bidding concluded, Crepin had personally met with Lortel and urged her to hand the grimoire over to him. She countered with 12,000 gold coins. Crepin accepted without hesitation. Before leaving, he revealed crucial information. Lortel's father, Elite Ketchalon, had hired a group of mercenaries now heading toward Sylvania. Despite Crepin's unpleasant personality, his information was valuable and strengthened their alliance. Holding the grimoire in her hands, Lortel considers her options: sell it to Crepin for significant profit, or use it as a way to get closer to Ed. A quiet smile crosses her face as she touches the cover, weighing her choices. Suddenly, Professor Glast uses effectual magic to create a powerful barrier, preventing anyone from approaching the grimoire. He summons two enormous spirits, forcing Principal Owl and Lortel to retreat under their overwhelming pressure. Without hesitation, Glast seizes the grimoire and leaves the hall swiftly. With no obstacles remaining in his path, the story moves forward without interference. The official beginning of the final scene of Act 2 has arrived. In Professor Glast's secret laboratory, Ed finds himself imprisoned in a cell alongside Isla. Frustrated and angry, she yells at him for being mean and makes her hatred of him clear. Suddenly Glass's friend and fellow researcher in spectral studies, appears. He warns them to consider themselves lucky for not being used in experiments and tells them to stay quiet. The monstrous guard outside might wake up, and that would put them in real danger. Ed remains completely calm and responds with confidence. Impressed by his composure, advises them to sit silently and avoid foolish actions. He'll be watching closely. Ed leans back and waits patiently. His plan: let Taylor arrive and rescue them, seize the opportunity to gather all the magic engineering recipes and equipment from the lab, and quietly return to camp. In the meantime, he tries to make conversation with Isla. She snaps at him every time he opens his mouth, still furious about the arrow incident. Ed tries to calm her, pointing out that if he truly wanted to hurt her, he could have. Stunned by his reasoning, she keeps yelling. He finally tells her firmly to stop and wait patiently for Taylor. Eventually, he apologizes, explaining that his actions were driven by his own complicated circumstances. Hearing an apology from Ed for the first time, Isla is left completely speechless. Then Mug appears, crying, asking desperately if Ed is safe and unharmed. Seeing Mug, Ed grabs him with relief. He finally has someone to talk to. Isla, surprised to see Ed with a spirit companion, suggests Mug should go warn others for help. Mug excitedly reports that he already asked Janica, and that Lucy is also preparing to come. Hearing Lucy's name, Ed's mood changes instantly. He becomes furious, realizing exactly what disaster is about to unfold. He spanks Mug hard, sending him flying across the cell. Notices the commotion and approaches. Ed warns him to release them or face serious trouble. Amused by Ed's confidence, ignores him and returns to his work. Mug sneaks back with the dungeon keys, having swiped them while was distracted. Ed quickly unlocks the cell door. He convinces Isla to stay behind. Her leg is hurt, and the monsters outside are dangerous. After some heated back and forth, she reluctantly agrees. Ed rushes out immediately, determined to stop Lucy before she arrives and causes irreversible chaos. Ed knows from experience that even the most dedicated players of this game avoid involving Lucy in major events at all costs, for fear of the unpredictable changes she brings. With his future hanging in the balance, he races against time. At Office Hall, Taylor arrives bruised and exhausted at Jix's room, seeking help to rescue Isla. Having lost track of Professor Glass after the events at Trix Hall, Taylor urgently asks Jix to join him and follow Glass' trail into the underground waterway. Meanwhile, Ed, having escaped from the laboratory, begins retracing his path in reverse, working backward through the scenario instead of forward. He finds it quietly amusing to experience the final scenario this way. The monsters all remain confined in their zones, which works significantly in his favor. But his greatest fear is a potential encounter between Lucy and Professor Glass. That matchup leads to a disastrous ending. He pushes forward, determined to finish the scenario before anything spirals out of control. He reaches the secret library where Ree, the librarian boss and a banshee, stands guard. Familiar with Ree's movement patterns, Ed decides not to engage her and leaves the battle for Taylor to handle. Taylor will gain crucial experience from defeating Ree and that experience will make future scenarios significantly easier. Ed sneaks through the library quietly, collecting only the necessary magical tools and magic engineering recipes, while carefully avoiding Ree's line of sight. Watching her movements from cover, Mug signals him when to move. They navigate carefully, then a violent earthquake shakes the ground. The unexpected tremor disturbs enough of the environment to alert Ree, who immediately spots Ed and Mug. In an instant she locks onto them, and as she approaches, both Ed and Mug scream, realizing they are in serious trouble. 30 minutes before the earthquake, Principal Oil finally defeats the giant spirit Professor Glass, summoned at Trix Hall, and saves everyone. Lortel stands in stunned silence, unable to believe that Glass stole the grimoire right in front of the Academy's entire top faculty. Ol tries to calm the room, assuring everyone he takes full responsibility and will retrieve the grimoire. He also expresses serious concerns about Glass and what he's planning. Ol explains the 3 major taboos of magic: seeking immortality, resurrecting the dead, and traveling through time. These acts defy natural law, disrupt time, and challenge human destiny. Lortel, remembering Glass' obsession with his late daughter and with the legendary sage Sylvania, realizes he's likely attempting the second taboo, resurrection. Before she can answer Ol's follow-up question, A faculty member rushes in and reports that Taylor has been spotted chasing glass into the underground waterway. The same source reports that eyewitnesses saw students being kidnapped, including Isla and Ed. Hearing that Ed was kidnapped, Lortel freezes. She believes Principal Oil, the greatest living mage, will keep his promise to retrieve the grimoire and rescue the kidnapped students. She decides the most sensible thing is to wait in the hall, but as she glances outside, something massive moves in the distance. She grabs binoculars and moves to the window. She looks through them and sees a huge spirit dragon ridden by Janica herself, heading directly into the entrance of the underground waterway. Lortel makes up her mind in a single moment. She orders her personnel to prepare for action and announces they're going in personally to retrieve the grimoire and stop Professor Glast's madness. In the underground waterway, Janica spots Dorothy, a third-year student and one of Glast's helpers. She grabs Dorothy for interrogation, but the sight of her enormous fiery dragon Tarkin, combined with Janica's dark aura, leaves Dorothy trembling. Tarkin growls. Janica's aura intensifies. Dorothy faints. Confused about where to go next, Janica pieces together the directions Dorothy mentioned before losing consciousness. She sighs, feels a little guilty, and gently covers Dorothy's face to spare her any further embarrassment. As Janica does this, Lortel arrives with her team and greets her with a playful tone. Observing Janica's assembled powerful spirits, Lortel realizes Janica will destroy the entire waterway if necessary to ensure Ed's safety. Then jealousy creeps in. She imagines a scenario where Janica dramatically rescues Ed, and Ed falls for her completely. Determined not to let that happen, Lortel approaches with a cunning smile and casually mentions that Ed has already been rescued and returned to his hut, suggesting Janica go check on him. Janica doesn't fall for it. She points out the logical problem. She was the first to arrive and didn't see anyone bringing Ed out. As the two engage in their playful argument, Janica mentions she also asked Lucy for help. Lucy yawned and walked away. Realizing they have no choice, both Janica and Lortel split up to search for Ed in different directions, both determined to find him first. Inside the secret library, just as things look truly dire for Ed and Mug, the roof suddenly collapses directly onto Ree, pinning her under the rubble. Lucy drops down from above, yawning, and explains that she got bored and decided to come help. Ed stares at her in horror. Things are about to get significantly worse. While the events unfold, Principal Oil and Akali watch the sunset together and discuss whether to intervene or allow the students to handle the situation on their own. Oil considers it a valuable opportunity for growth. They are the future mages and warriors of Sylvania Academy. His friend acknowledges the incredible talent gathered here. He lists names, Taylor Jix, others rising to challenges. Oil's excitement builds. He senses something big is coming, challenges far more intense than anything before, that will push the students beyond their limits. Lucy lands on Ree and traps her under rubble. She sits on top of the pile, yawning, and casually asks if Ed has any beef jerky left. Ed, still shaken, says he doesn't. Lucy looks sad and starts looking for a place to nap. Ed moves quickly and grabs her shoulder. He knows Lucy's arrival has complicated everything, but he also knows that by now Janica and Lortel should have entered the waterway to help him. To allow Taylor to defeat the remaining enemies and build experience, he needs to stop Janica and Lortel from interfering. And most critically, he must prevent Lucy from rushing directly to the final stage and defeating Glast, which leads to the bad ending. Thinking fast, Ed convinces Lucy to stay with him. He remembers something Janica once said, staying quietly with someone ensures safety. Using the same logic, he tells Lucy to stay close and promises her beef jerky once they escape. With Lucy on his side, his plan is clear. Gather the magical equipment from the library, find Janica and Lortel, get everyone out, and leave the final scenario entirely to Taylor. As they begin moving, Lucy casts an ignition spell that burns every attacking bat in their path. Ed watches in genuine awe, reminded of just how overwhelmingly powerful she truly is. He tries to slow her down and leave enough enemies for Taylor to fight and strengthen through. Meanwhile, Janica and Lortel search for Ed from different directions. Lortel moves through the underground waterway, navigating quickly. She's skilled at finding the right paths, unlike Janica, who relies on spirit connection. As she does, she notices something shifting inside herself, a genuine growing concern for Ed that goes beyond wealth and power. For the first time, she realizes she actually wants to help someone without expecting anything in return. She reaches a concealed wall with a spell cast on it. She pauses to listen. Then a blast shatters the wall from the other side, and out comes Ed, carrying Lucy on his back, hauling advanced magic equipment. Lortel immediately feels relief at seeing him safe. Then she sees Lucy on his back. Something ignites in her. She had made every first move. She had been proactive where Janica hesitated and played it safe. And now here is Lucy, being carried by Ed, comfortably settled on his back like it's perfectly natural. All of Lortel's efforts feel suddenly at risk. Her frustration builds and she yells his name angrily. Before she can say more, Ed pulls her close and looks straight into her eyes. He tells her quietly and simply that he trusts her more than anyone else. Lortel freezes, her heart races, a deep blush spreads across her face. All the anger evaporates, replaced by something warmer and more overwhelming than she expected. For just a moment, she feels like she's genuinely making progress in a way she never quite anticipated. Then one of her crew members rushes over with urgent news about a major problem unfolding nearby. In the underground waterway, Taylor and his group press deeper. Clebius mumbles about wanting to leave. Alvera kicks his foot to shut him up. He yells in pain and demands to know why they even have to save Ed Roth along with Isla. Taylor calmly reminds him that Isla is a good person and asks him to stay strong. As they move forward, Adil, the group's self-proclaimed fortune teller with a habit of being uncannily accurate, raises a finger dramatically and warns them something dangerous is just ahead. Right on cue, an explosion. Tarkin appears, Janica's fiery dragon, carrying a struggling Miss Claire. Janica is demanding Claire tell her where Glast is. Terrified, Claire stumbles and faints, just like Dorothy before her. Janica notices Taylor's group and greets them with a smile. The group immediately shifts to combat readiness, assuming she's an obstacle. Janica looks confused. Taylor seems ready to fight, but Jix steps forward and casually waves at her, clearly sensing a misunderstanding. Before things can escalate, someone shouts for everyone to stop. Ed and Lortel appear from another direction. Taylor freezes in shock. He takes in the scene. Janica, Lortel, and Ed, all standing together. The realization hits him immediately. His group has absolutely no chance of defeating this combination. He remembers how Ed, using only basic magic and archery, managed to hold off his entire group during the office hall incident. Now Ed looks physically stronger in every way. Taylor knows their odds are zero. To Taylor's surprise, Ed walks directly over to him and taps his shoulder. Calmly, he tells Taylor to focus on rescuing Isla and defeating Glast. He assures Taylor that he'll handle the side threat. Elite Ketchum. Lortel's crew member rushes to her with alarming news. Elite Ketchum has arrived on Arkan Island, accompanied by mercenaries. Hearing this, Ed understands the situation immediately. Elite Ketchum, the mid-boss of Act 2, was never properly defeated before. Because of that oversight, he has returned, taking advantage of the mistake Lortel made when she left many of her trading company members behind without leadership. Without their leader, the elite had no trouble working through them one by one. But Ed holds a unique advantage, the magic tool that lets him see the game's future unfolding. As he examines the current events, he realizes everything is still following the original storyline. With Act 2 nearing its conclusion and Taylor pushing the main story forward, Ed sees his role clearly. If he handles Elite Ketchum, exactly as happens in the original story, the plot will stay on track. Confident in his strategy, Ed gives Taylor's group a boost of morale and wishes Taylor good luck. As the main character of this game, Taylor will face even greater challenges ahead. Ed trusts him. Leaving Taylor and his group to the main storyline, Ed heads outside, determined to confront Elite Ketchum and eliminate this new threat before it disrupts everything. Ed suspects the elite will attack Lortel's trading company to find proof of her involvement in the armor sale scheme, the proof that cost him his position in the association. As they run toward the trading company, Janica suddenly tells them to stop for a moment. Ed insists they keep moving. Janica plants herself in place and forces Ed to stop as well. Tears are forming in her eyes as she begs him not to get hurt again. She reminds him that he already collapsed once and barely escaped from Glast's prison. She tells him the elite's problem has nothing to do with him. Ed knows this isn't technically his fight, but he also knows that if the elite isn't dealt with now, it will ruin the safe ending he's been working to protect. And he knows he'll need both Janica and Lortel to handle the situation. Lortel agrees with Janica. She tells Ed it's her fault for pulling him into her problems, and he should be resting somewhere safe instead of putting himself in danger again. Ed feels something genuine looking at Janica and Lortel agreeing with each other for once, even if only in this moment. But this isn't the time to rest. He thanks them both for caring. Then he firmly tells them that Lortel's problem isn't someone else's problem to him. Both Janica and Lortel stop. They stare at him, surprised, moved, and completely off balance. A new resolve begins to form between all three of them. Ed insists they keep running. As they go, he feels embarrassed and regretful about how he phrased it. He's not good at saying these things properly. Noticing his troubled expression, Janica lifts his spirits. She tells him he's right. It isn't just someone else's problem. If the elite takes over the trading company, Ed's contract collapses and his magic tool supply gets cut off. Ed is quietly impressed by how smart she is. Meanwhile, Lortel walks slightly behind them, blushing and lost in her thoughts about what he said. As they near the exit, Ed notices the scene ahead. Complete destruction. He wonders briefly if Taylor could have caused it. Then Janica admits a little guiltily that she was the one who caused it. An accident. Dorothy passed out in the chaos. She worries Ed might think she's heartless and nervously tries to explain it wasn't intentional. Lortel's crew member informs them they're almost at the exit and that a carriage is waiting outside. The plan is to use it to quickly reach the association building where Lortel's staff is waiting. They step outside. The carriage has been destroyed. Lortel's crew members have been killed. Standing in the middle of the wreckage, waiting for them with calm authority, is the elite himself.